teams or organization or investors to not invest into CS because like the risk of it is simply too big. Why are they going to invest like, let's say 20, 30, $40,000 a month into a team? Like even if they're like on salaries, let's say 2K a month, like then there's obviously boot camps, whatnot, right? Why would they invest that if the opportunity is so small?
Quickly. Clear. Shoot it.
The world is changing, but one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xBet.
Sell in-game items at the best prices in just a couple of clicks. We are the biggest instant sell service for in-game items like Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, and Rust. Easy selling process and instant withdrawal of funds to the most popular payment methods. More than 140,000 deals and 50,000 active sellers every month. Use promo code HLTV5 and get a 5% bonus on the sale of your skins. Skin Place. Sell items now.
It was more than a game. It was everything. Every single emotion on display. Not a moment missed. This was CS:GO through the lens.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Counter-Strike fans across the globe, welcome to another episode of HLTV Confirmed, brought to you by 1xBet and Skin Place. Remember to gamble responsibly, and if you're in the marketplace to sell some skins, head over to Skin Place. Check out what prices you can get. If you're joining us for tonight's show, it's 2 hours on the nose. No longer, no shorter. That's 100% guarantee. And I apologize if you feel that we didn't talk about the one thing that you wanted us to talk about, but we'll talk about it in one of the many other episodes that we will be doing in 2025. I've got Striker, I've got Prof, I've got a sick Lucas, but we have to be wicked sick in terms of our pace. Rapid tonight, gentlemen. We're going to be talking about the VRS, everything that is wrong with it or right with it. We'll see where Striker lands. He's going to be the judge, jury, and executioner. Going to be having a tournament organizer on. We're going to be having some players on. We're going to have Graham, well, a player, Graham Messioso Pitt on the show as well. So we'll be chit-chatting throughout all of that tonight. But Striker, you got to go over to Katowice. You made it home. When did you get home?
Literally before midnight on the final.
Midnight?
On Sunday at midnight, around midnight, actually.
The final was so short, he made it home.
I mean, I always drive home from Katowice because it's like a 2-hour drive. And I don't think I ever made it that early back home, to be honest. It was always like, at 2 or something.
Tell me what everyone's here to hear about. Did you take Magics for a ride around Brno or what?
I don't know what that's about, man. I don't even know where this meme came from, man. Like it's been everywhere, and I know there's a guy who started bringing it up, and I don't know if that's where it originates. But this whole IEM Brno, it's literally my hometown that nobody cares about. Nobody should care about, to be honest. It's like it's not that special.
I mean, now that PGL's Krakow event has been canceled, I feel like this is the most logical replacement for it. It's also very close to Katowice, so all the coal miners and co can come over to Brno.
Yeah. Shortest event time ever, announced and unannounced within the space of a couple of hours. We'll see if we get into that.
Relationship expert, have you ever had a relationship as short as this?
Not that quick. That's ridiculous. That's like when Britney Spears went to Vegas and got married, right? That didn't last very long whatsoever.
I don't even remember this.
That's the boomer in me starting to show. Prof, you were watching Katowice from home.
Yeah.
How was the viewing experience from home?
I have to tell you, this is the first time I've watched it from home since I went there the first time in 19, I think. So like 2018 is probably the last time I watched it online, and it looks so much bigger. Whatever the camera people are doing, I need these tips and tricks. That's all I'm gonna say for private purposes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, there's an Instagram page that I think there's a lady helping with stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, get you some sexy poses going on.
There you go.
That's the
It's all
thing with
about the angles.
Katowice, right? Like in terms of because it's a pretty dated arena, it doesn't have boxes or anything like that, so it is just like the bleachers. But they did open up more seating this time around the backside. Yeah. So people who wanted to go for free could go behind, and it was kind of nice because when the players walked off, they could see the players walk off, so they were kind of like clapping when they walked off, which I thought was cute. And they get a different view. They get to see where all the production staff and everything are back there. So it's like a little bit different for the Spodek.
It's nice. I mean, it was a nice event overall, but I do feel like, you know, people are always putting like Katowice and Cologne in the same discussion. I feel like this year, especially being at home, I feel like you could feel the difference even more. And I mean, there was a little comment from Flames who didn't flame Katowice, but he was like very honestly
recognized
he was like, oh yeah, I went on stage like after the first game that they won, I think on the stage. He was like, oh, I was always thinking like Cologne and Katowice are the same, but now I realize how big Cologne is, like the length of the arena.
You misappropriated this interview? This is the one he did with me.
Yeah, that's with you.
Okay.
I didn't say he didn't tweet this. I didn't say he tweeted.
I was like, he said something like that. He went up on stage. Yeah,
but that was. I mean, honestly, it was a good event. Kind of sad for how the games went. You know, yeah. You know what?
No, you don't have to tell me about it, mate. I didn't do a single good game the whole tournament.
The last time a team won a map in a losing series in Katowice playoffs, we had Overpass and like Hades top fragged.
Oh my god,
it's been a while.
Rolling back the years. Well, that's it, because none of the playoff games at all. The teams who lost, none of them won a map. And the final was actually more dominant by one round than Spirits win over FaZe.
Yeah,
there you go.
There were some good rounds. It wasn't like a boring grand final in itself. Like it had some good moments. I feel like even Dust 2, that was kind of, I don't know. I feel like there was a back and forth, even though the result would end up kind of one-sided. There were some like micro moments within the games where you could feel maybe Spirit can do something here, but it just didn't turn out like that.
Yeah, I think that they like the first map started competitive, but it just simmered out really quickly, and it felt like they were helpless. I thought they were going to bounce back on Nuke, and we may have had a competitive game going, but it wasn't to be the case. I think like from a story perspective, obviously it's really good, same way as it was in Cologne for Apex with Vitality. This is nice as well because Rops is in the jersey. The thing that I took away from that the most was seeing Rops and ZywOo just constantly like smirking and smiling at each other throughout it. I'm like, oh, look at this little like bromance starting to form here. But I liked the new look Vitality the most. This is the upgrade, obviously. I think the addition of Rops has freed up other players, which makes them feel like they're more involved in the game too, which is nice, right? Nice for Mezzy, especially. Pretty nice for Flames, who was already used, a bit here and there, but I think they get some different positions and they get to be more active within the game, which is really good. So I guess people want to start looking at the start of the year because Katowice can be a bit of a tone setter. We know a lot of teams have roster changes. Vitality walk away with the trophy. People already want to start jumping to assumptions, right? Is this like Vitality's year now? So when you guys saw this, do you think it was pretty dominant?
Year, man. I predicted this at the beginning of the season. I said they would be the team of the season because Rops is going to give them the big match impact. Have I not been completely right for the entire season, obviously?
Well, yeah, I think right now on the 11th of February, we should draw all the conclusions. Now, I think that one of the things that they said in multiple different interviews was about what Rob's bringing, not just in terms of the player, right, and in the server, but the motivating factor. He kind of is a carrot and a stick, right? So he's not bringing one or the other. Like the thing that Flames said to me in one of the little podcast things we did was, that you don't want to just be sitting in the prac room, he said watching Pokemon is what he said. I don't know if he's still watching Pokemon, maybe he is, but you don't want to be doing that while you have a player like Rops who's in the server like geeking out. So it kind of acts that way, which is more of like a negative framing, right? It's like, oh shit, I can't be slacking off. But then it has the positive framing that he's coming and bringing you ideas and he's inspiring you to be doing the same. So
I don't even
it's-
think that's a negative framing, by the way. I mean, if you have in any workplace, if you have some like motivated individuals, they will push you to do more, and that's nothing negative about it. It's just having a very productive workplace.
Okay, well, look at this guy, Mr. Office, right here. He wants everybody back in the office.
Never in his life. I've
never worked at
for
an
a day.
What? No, I did. I did for like half of a year, but yeah.
He's gonna Elon Musk this shit. Okay, so in terms of the Vitality story, other than ZywOo now has MVP for a major, Cologne, and Katowice, so that's pretty sick. The trophy cabinet's starting to get a bit more padded out. He played really well in that final. Like him and Rops just traded maps at the start. Like Rops had a beast mode, and then ZywOo did the same. But it wasn't like anybody was slacking on Vitality whatsoever. Everybody was contributing where they needed to. Apex was playing well. It was
Apex
comprehensive.
like I don't know the stats, but for him, like playoffs was like 1.25 rating or something from Apex, which is of
Pretty
course, yeah, not too many maps, but overall, that's still a huge playoff performance. Is he getting an EVP?
We were talking about it as it was happening. That it's definitely worth a look. We're not sure yet. We haven't talked about the EVPs, but we will at some point, probably soon.
I do think Vitality are one of the teams that has like bonuses for EVPs. So please be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on the contract. I do think this is true. So okay. just saying striker, please don't like get swayed. Or maybe do.
Or maybe do. It depends. Yeah. Do we want bonuses or not? That's the question. One other thing I really liked, I guess, was I thoroughly enjoy the. What's the word? Oh, am I still here? Hello?
You are.
Oh, you are.
Camera not,
the
but
camera just went out.
Yeah, you just
Okay.
keep going until it gets fixed.
My internet should be fine. I can still see myself. Within the director has. Okay, I'm back.
You're back.
You're good.
Okay, sorry everybody. It just has a few tech issues. The versatility of Apex's like T-side calling, they always feel like they're doing something different. I don't think they're like a very readable team. They'll do a lot of 4-1s, but then they'll default and then they'll go straight into an execute. And I just think that they show a lot of diversity in their playbook, which I think is nice. I think that's also easier to do when you have a newer player who also brings moves, right? And moves that they want to do. So I think that's a positive there. But yeah, all in all,
I mean, I think the amount of shutting down of donk that they did was pretty interesting to watch. I think like it was, I mean, it was talked about both by Vitality, ZywOo, like on the desk and everything, but between just like letting the A site of Mirage be like open pretty much. So like the executes came in and donk would do his classic like clearing of the bomb site with flashes and everything. And he'd clear it, but there would be no one there to duel actually. And then they'd go for like retakes, like 3-4 people very fast from the CT, like peeking from CT into site and stuff like that. So like one part being just like avoiding these executes, and then the other part was just like Rops being on point. And in some ways, the dichotomy of Rops versus donk, I think it's very fun. It's like the classic immovable object versus unstoppable force kind of situation, right? Donk is the YOLO going in, clearing everything, and Rob's just holding angles and like who's gonna win in this situation. It was definitely Rob's winning out more often than not. So these two things together, I think, was a huge reason why Vitality was so comfortable overall in the series.
yeah, and for them, they took on the Mongols in the semi, which was pretty straightforward. Mongols not with much experience there. EF shat the bed in their quarterfinal, which I think for them as well, lack of experience there, but still, they didn't look like the same team that we had seen throughout the rest of the season so far.
I mean, it's also like another example of like Xantares not performing, not doing very well, and honestly had some like dog shit like luck in some of the rounds.
Yeah.
But I think it like kind of compounds. I feel like he's still a player that, despite his age, can get into his own head a bit when things go bad like this. So, and they need him to perform.
Yeah.
And same like, people are going to be like, oh, Spirit can't perform without donk, but obviously he's your best player. You put a lot of resources in him, and if he can't get things going, then you are going to lose. That's just how the game plan is, and it's like, I don't think that's something to be ashamed of. It would be worse to like put resources in fucking Magics and then he gets like a kill and a half and you're still going to lose anyway. So what's the point of playing like that?
I think on the other side, right, we had the VP Spirit game that doesn't really need to be discussed because VP had the stand-in. We can talk more about.
I do think that I was curious how Spirits just looked at that game as like a shit game from them too, because of like half of the ancient didn't go so well, and like I talked like it was on the stage. Who was on the stage? Was Ontix or something? Or somebody on the stage or Magix, I think, was on the stage and he said that.
Oh
They
yes,
felt like they played like shit or bad game or whatever, and so then like I asked Shiro about it, but he's also super negative during the entire interview. I'm like, what is going on? Like, okay, it wasn't the cleanest game, but you knew you were gonna win the whole time. Like, what's the problem?
I think the expectation is just to blow them out of the water on both maps, right? And the fact is because they have a stand-in, you probably feel that more. So it's one of those games when you know you're going up against a team with a stand-in. It's you obviously have to take them seriously, but it's tough because it is a little bit of it's fucked. It's a bit more of a Mickey Mouse game. They're going to do stupid shit. Like, yeah. Anyway, there's no point getting stuck in that. But then we had the Na'Vi versus Spirit rematch in the semi, and Spirit came out on top of them in that one, and it felt relatively comfortable, I would say. It was done in 2 maps. Like, I think this is what see, when I say this, all the Na'Vi fans aren't going to be happy with this.
I mean, the Dust to was close, obviously, so.
Yeah, but I think like so your Spirit, you've just been in the last 3 finals in a row. You won the last 2. One of them was a studio event, sure, but the one before that was the major. So you're operating on like high intensity matches, right? That's where you want to do your best work in the big games where the pressure's there to win the titles. And then you're playing against Na'Vi in the group stage, which was still a really, really tight match, but it meant more to Na'Vi than it did to Spirit in that case. And I understand that meant that they had to go through the lower bracket, and it didn't mean that anything was a guarantee. But they were the favorite in the lower bracket anyway. And then, sure, they had to play more matches, but I think that's another thing. It's like, it's hard to get out of bed, when you, and go run, I forget who it's, some boxer. It's like hard to get out of bed and go run those like 10Ks or whatever when you're sleeping in silk pajamas. I've probably butchered that, right? And I'm probably completely off, but it's kind of that sentiment, right? So, and the fact that they took care of business 2-0 in the playoff, we'll have to see how that matchup with Na'Vi kind of grows. We won't see them in Cluj, but we'll see those teams in Pro League and then in Lisbon after. So it's not too long that we have to wait. But Spirit in the final, what do you guys have to say? Because to me, they just fucking weren't there. They just weren't on. I think as points of, you could discuss getting countered. Donk took a lot of nade damage throughout the series. But overall, they were pretty fucking miss.
I think it was also, like, obviously a lot of people were looking at Donk, but Shiro also had a terrible series, and like, if you don't have the guy who's supposed to create openings for you really showing up too much, and then he's getting killed through smokes, getting naded, like countered heavily, like then you do have to have Shiro step up to some degree, and then he never did anything there either, right? So it did feel like a massive disappearance, really.
Yeah, I mean that one defuse on Dust 2. Not the best way to start the series.
It was always going to be tough for him, though, right? Like, he had the AWP, he had to go into the rifle, then he's trying to find him. Like, they should never have been in that round. Like, Donk gets 4 kills. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, that's against a partial buy. It's not
rough. I know you said on the cast, like, it feels worse for Vitality, but I don't think it does. Because, like, you're in that situation, you are more expected to win, therefore you feel worse when you lose. Like, for Vitality is the other way around. Obviously, like,
oh, they weren't the favorites?
They were the favorites early, and then Donk got 4, and then the bomb is down, and it's 1v1. It's like, nah, no way he's gonna defuse this. Like, and then they win. They're like, fuck yeah, So I feel like it still flipped back into like they felt better after that round than Spirit did.
Maybe, because, I don't know. Either way, they won. They owned them, so it doesn't really matter.
People are talking in chat about the like taking off the medal thing, and being like, there's a comment. I lost it now. Or? Like everyone did, like Chopper as well. As soon as they got the medal for the 2nd place, they took it off.
Oh, I didn't see that.
And then after Zontix obviously gave it away, and people are like, oh, this only happens in the Olympics when something bad, like there's some like refereeing issue or something, But I think the difference is in the Olympics, when you finish 2nd, you're still pretty happy with that. That's like historic achievement.
Yeah.
And in CS, if you finish 2nd in a tournament, it's like, it doesn't really matter. Like if you finish 2nd or you finish 3rd, or 3rd, 4th, it's not really a big difference. It's kind of all the same shit. You lost, so you feel like shit, and that's the end of the
especially for the world number 1, right? Like you're there to win.
Like, just ask Kerrigan, man. Like, his second places are probably the worst of anybody's.
Yeah.
You know, three
Yeah.
three runner-up in that majors.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, we should probably get going into the stuff because we have like two sponsor segments to get through.
Okay.
So we should probably go to what are the odds, and then
What are the odds, Prof?
what are the odds that ZywOo gets more MVPs than Donk in 2025?
Oh,
I'm putting this.
That's tough, man.
Currently, they're 1-1, so they're tied. And also, we have to have it like ZywOo has more in this. So if it's 5-5, then
Donk wins.
the results would be no, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's right. So I would say I would start because I have an angle to this kind of. Well, I'm not sure if I do actually. So I think Spirit are more likely to go to some PGL events, which probably increases their chances of winning more events than Vitality do this year, even if they might not be as big, but just purely based on numbers alone. I would give the edge to Donk anyway. So I would say, but not a lot, because they're also kind of prone to skipping events, and stuff. It could happen that they skip like both Melbourne and Dallas if they go to what is in the middle, Astana, right? So if that happens, then like it actually might work out the other way. But just on that logic alone, I would just give Donk like a 55% edge. So that's like 45 for ZywOo then.
So an answer, ZywOo wins more MVPs than Donk. This should be 45% from Striker. Okay, so Spirit didn't accept the Dallas invite, but Vitality did. So there's one event where Spirit won't be at, that Vitality will be. But if they go to Astana, like you just said, I don't think Vitality will go to Astana.
Yeah.
The PGL Bucharest studio event, what do we think the chances of Spirit or Vitality going there? I think Vitality pretty slim unless conversations have changed. So Spirit at that point would be coming off the back of Lisbon?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, like 5 days after.
And they will have just done Pro League into Lisbon. So
I mean, if they skip Melbourne,
I
could see them doing that and then going only to Mexico. But just depends on if they said yes to Melbourne
both,
or not.
Though. You don't need both. They'll be invited to the major anyway.
Yeah, sure.
So,
at that point, you're right there, of course. But I think having a full month off before Mexico, I don't know if they'd want to do that.
I don't think Vitality will go to Melbourne.
Yeah.
What about the Intel Grand Slam? People are writing this is because now Vitality have 3
Yeah, they need 2
wins.
more.
I still don't think they'll go.
Current wins 2. Okay. Yeah.
I still don't think they'll go.
Okay.
Because if they win EPL and they win Dallas, they still get it, right?
Yeah, but that's assuming you win both of the events you go to, So
yeah, but also what's more important, the Israel Grand Slam or the major?
I agree.
So I think they'd prioritize the major.
And then they also have Cologne after. If they, if they don't win, probably no one else is gonna. I mean, Navi current situation is. Where did I lose it? Intel Grand Slam.
For Navi, isn't it only EPL?
Current wins, Navi
EPL
2.
and Rio. But they need a Cologne or a Katowice. So Navi are in a situation where they have to win Cologne and something before it, right?
Yeah.
Right. But then it's nobody can win it until Cologne then in that case, unless, Vitality do it in those 2.
Yes.
Yeah, and FaZe also has 2.
Yes, but they would need to win Cologne as well.
Yeah, right. Same thing. Yeah.
So with that in mind, let's think about this. How many ESL events can you skip in a year without ruining whatever their incentive is? So 2. So if you're Vitality, you could skip Melbourne and you could skip Chengdu, or you could skip second EPL season.
I mean, they could also go to Chengdu. There's nothing that like around there too much.
I mean, they can skip
like
3 in 2 years. 3 in 2 years. So they're probably going to skip 1.
Yeah, I also doubt that they will skip Chengdu because there's the rivals right after that, which is also somewhere Eastern Asia, So like whatever, it's like could be China, Hong Kong, something like Taiwan, whatever. Like some one of these countries is Eastern Asia, right? So that's like 2 events back to back, but then you have another 2 weeks before the major, which is in Europe, So you have a little bit of downtime before that. I imagine they wouldn't skip rivals, So I would imagine they would go. Yeah.
So we have to kind of go through this as well, and then part of this is factoring in: do we think there's going to be a downward slide for Spirit?
That's that's what pushes it a bit more Spirit side. And again, it's also have to take into account that if it's tied, then it's a no, right?
Also,
Okay.
do we think that Vitali will go to these Fisher events? Oh, this is
Ooh.
full year, right?
Full year.
Yeah. Okay. So there's 2 Fisher events, one September, one. Where's the other one?
I think
November or
I
something?
think that Spirit will go and farm those events because they're in Serbia, aren't
Yep.
they? Those Fisher events.
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
I'm going to go like 30% based off that. I
Yeah.
think that Spirit will
I'm
just go
giving
farm
30
those
as well.
events because I think Spirit are on a bit of a downslide. If I'm going to be honest, I think that yeah. Okay, there we go. So let's total that up. We don't have to.
Yeah,
get
there's
through
like
it.
3 events in Belgrade that I would
there
be
you go.
surprised if they didn't go to. You know, so
exactly. They do the PGL Belgrade. They do the okay.
two
So they're
Fisher, July and September.
I've seen enough. I've seen enough. The jury, the judge, whatever. Some
Yeah,
fucking
now
guy
I also
rests.
feel like I went a little bit high, but I'll stay with it. Fuck
Yeah,
it.
they'll
good.
go farm that shit. Okay, here's the odds, everybody. You get to vote on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, as well as Instagram, and we'll keep tallying that along. We've had a couple of these come to their conclusion. I think it was the train one, but we can get to that in the next episode because we don't have a lot of time. All right, let's jump into... Do you want to talk about the MVP stuff or just get into Skinionaire?
I mean, I can just mention, did you see the Simple response? He was like, because obviously ZywOo and Simple now tied. Simple made some comment and it was transcribed. I don't know why, but I'm relying on CS2 News to actually transcribe this and translate this accurately. But he said like, ZywOo won 3 or 4 online RMRs and realized that he actually just won 2 and Simple won 1 as well. So essentially it's like 1 MVP difference. If that's like a huge difference for people, then fine. I saw some people discussing about this because I made a tweet that they're like tied for all 3 of just MVPs, big event MVPs and major MVPs. So, you know, can you find an angle where it's not the same? Yeah, but is that the point of nitpicking everything? I mean, if that is your point in life, you can do that. Ultimately, they are tied. And maybe like 3-4 years ago, it would be kind of insane to even think that this is the case. And ultimately, it's just sad that Simple is not even playing to have any sort of say in this.
Well, that's
race,
the main
right?
takeaway, right? It's like ZywOo is going to be able to extend that. Simple's not even on a team.
Yeah.
So
It's just a matter of time at this
Let's say you want to argue that they're not tied right now. ZywOo will probably end up with more by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, if you look at it, I was looking at it from like by year, right? And ZywOo had these in 7 years, had the 21 in 7 years. Now he's going into his 8th, I think. And Simple also had all of his in 7 years, and then he had a year where he didn't do anything. You know, 2023, where at the end only he took a break, half retired. I don't know what you want to call it. So like on that, ZywOo probably has an edge. You know, so there's a lot of angles to that.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, Skinionaire.
Let's do it.
I made some great questions. This is for you, Chad. This is for you, Chad.
Sake. I'm not feeling ready to answer
You started with a quote today. You're going to have another quote in this one. Maybe even 2.
All right, if you want to enter the draw, type Skin Place in chat right now. This is the quiz. We do it every week. Who wants to be a Skinionaire? Brought to you by Skin Place. If you type Skin Place in chat, it'll be a raffle ticket. Depending on how many questions I get correct, it means you may be the very lucky winner of a skin valued at the amount of questions I get correct. 50 cents, $2.50, $7.50, $15, or the grand total of $50. All right, let's get this one underway. What percentage of Katowice playoff teams have won 13 plus rounds on a map? 50%, 66.6%, 75%, or 83.5%? I need to open the quiz so I can fucking hit the thing.
Yeah, the answer is 3, 4, 5. Wait, what? Katowice playoffs teams have won. So that's 6 playoffs teams. 50% would be 3.
13 plus rounds on a map. 13 plus rounds on a map. Which percentage of Katowice playoff teams have won 13 plus rounds? He's thrown me for a bit of a loop here.
Some of these percentages cannot be true. That's like there's
because there was overtime games. There was 2 overtime games, right? Did the Navi game go into overtime?
Yeah. I mean the Spirit one, yeah.
So 5. What would 5 be? Is 5 an option?
That's the last one. The last one.
Fuck, I can't even open Skinionaire. I can't find the quiz in my bookmarks, man.
Just someone click for him.
Have to be Lucas.
I didn't do.
Oh, here we go. I found it. Fucking hell. 83.3%. I've locked it in. What's the correct answer? Oh, it is. Fuck, I nailed it.
But 75% is just lost. Like it is.
Why does it matter? Why does it matter?
Or what doesn't even work?
Why does it matter?
I was like trying to do the math in my head. I'm like, am I the one stupid here?
All right, we got there. I nailed it. I smashed it. All right, question number 2. Mongols were the youngest player of team. Who was the oldest? VP, Vitality, or Navi? Apex is 31. Navi, Alexi is the oldest, but he's not older than Dan. The average Electronics 26. Everybody else in the rest of the team is younger than 26. The average age Bits like 21 or 22.
Wonderful's young as well.
Vitality
fuck.
is.
I might have fucked this up.
Well, that's fine.
I mean,
But somebody
let
else,
me see.
I mean, FaZe is older, no?
Yeah,
Than
yeah.
all of these.
But
Out
they
of
weren't in the
these-
playoffs.
Anyway, out of these 3, let's say.
Vitality,
Okay.
I think. I'm locking
I
in
would
B,
also,
Vitality.
I would also go that way.
The correct answer is
I definitely fucked this up.
Okay.
thank God, because Electronics only 26.
Yeah,
Bane's like
it's Vitality.
21.
Yeah. It's Vitality.
All right, I'm 2 from 2. Fuck the green. The red's correct this time round. I smashed it.
But FaZe is older than them either.
But they didn't
they're not
get to the
playoffs.
playoffs.
They're not-
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay. I didn't
So I'm
realize
still right.
you are only talking about playoffs teams.
All right, question number 3. EF have reached a new peak HLTV ranking of 5. Their Valve ranking it's the same. It is the same. The Valve ranking is the same. I'm pretty sure it is Spirit number 1, Vitality number 2, Mongols number 3. What else number 4? Navi number 4, maybe? Anyway, I'm putting in same. Locking in B, same. Correct answer is, please be right. Fuck, it's worse?
They're number 7.
What? Really?
Yes.
Fuck, man. We fucked it up there. I forgot about G2. All right, well,
And FaZe is somehow
FaZe is
in front
above
of
them as well.
we'll get to that. We're going to talk about the VRS in a second.
Yeah.
Question number 4. On Twitter, Wonderful replied to a video of his duel with Magic with lol, woeful, please fix at Counter-Strike. My bad, sorry. He replied with my bad, sorry. I think it was probably sarcastic, the my bad, sorry, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. I think it was sarcastic.
I haven't seen. I missed out on a lot of good stuff. I feel like I was kind of like taking yesterday off because I was just so fucking dead.
And this is the question. This is the question. I'm really curious if you're going to know this one.
Okay, question number 5. Here we go. A man can be destroyed but never defeated. Who is this quote attributed to? Genghis Khan, Ernest Hemingway, George Orwell, Winston Churchill. God, it's obviously not Genghis Khan.
This was on Mara's t-shirt.
I know, but I don't think Genghis Khan is going out. Genghis Khan never lost a battle, did he? Or is it Genghis? Just ask Joe Rogan. Ernest Hemingway, George Orwell, Winston Churchill. Fucking hell, bro.
You can answer it all, but I don't think you're going to get any.
I have no idea.
I don't even know who the fuck Ernest
I wouldn't say
Hemingway is.
I don't think that's George Orwell.
Unless it is like from a novel he wrote.
I mean,
but
two of these are novelists. I would imagine that's neither of them.
who is Ernest Hemingway?
A writer.
He's a writer.
For fuck's sake, man.
I would say it's not him. So let's just.
I'm going with
my-
Churchill.
go-
I'm going
go
with
for it.
Winston Churchill. Correct answer is Ernest Hemingway. Guy I don't even fucking know. For fuck's sake.
What is
Yeah.
this quote? Look,
He's getting me back for the quiz I gave to you guys. It was really hard.
Bro. But didn't you mention this on the cast? Or was it Machine?
It was on the back of his shirt.
Yeah.
On Mara's shirt. I don't know who wrote
I
it.
also was like, I didn't know anything about it, but like the way, I think Machine mentioned it, and the way he read this was like, obviously everyone knows what this means. I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck this means.
Yeah.
And then I Googled it and I found this Ernest Hemingway for some reason.
Yeah. Well, we got 3 out of 5 correct. So someone wins a $7.50 skin. I feel unfortunate for our winner. Our winner is Rakadakar. RAKHDAKH. You've been following for 3 years. I'm sorry, bro. I'm really sorry that you're going to get your 750 skin, man. Our people will reach out to your people and we'll get you your lucky little prize. Man, it feels like it's consolation prize. It's not even that. Middle of it. It's so sad. What a sad
is
way
what
to
it
start
is.
the week. Okay. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of tonight's conversation. We did say in the last episode, the Talking Counter HLTV Confirmed crossover, we were going to talk about some of the VRS issues because there was some tweets coming out from the NIP guys. Since then, there's been like a letter written to Valve. There's been more discourse about it. We had a bit of a conversation regarding it as well. We got Striker here who's pretty learned on all of this. We're going to be bringing in Snappi in a second. I wanted to ask a question for my own stuff here, Striker. I saw the tweet come out. Was it yesterday or today? Anyway, about the forfeiting thing now being marked as losses. Can I? Because we spoke about that before, and we spoke and I'm pretty sure we spoke about teams abusing it. Why did that only change now? Why was that not already the case?
From what I know, Valve did get alerted to this even like last year, and just never really got addressed. And then when I messaged them, it turned out that it seems that the way that we deal with forfeits, they were being filtered out. So we basically just added them to the filtering, or like to the API that they're getting for all the data, and that's how they should be getting included now, which is possibly also why they delayed the ranking, because I don't think the Monday one didn't happen, right?
Not yet, anyway.
Looking at it, I think they're delaying it, maybe perhaps because of that, or because of the club share thing that we also added, which is going to be like a new bracket for them as well. So it's possible that that's something that's just going to take them a minute to include on the ranking.
Okay, so because this is what Yanko learned last episode, and he just kept uttering under his breath that HLTV has too much power. So this is basically saying that the way that you guys did things was affecting their ranking because they're just taking your data, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that kind of sucks, but it's fixed now.
Good that we got there. Yeah, it should have been earlier for sure, but we got there.
Okay, and the next one I wanted to know is, why did the play-ins or stage one? It depends on what vernacular you want to use, but because like now that we've established that you guys in the way that the website structures things has so much power and so much influence on the way things are curated. Why do the play-ins only count for such little points, even though they're LAN games?
I mean, that depends on how you look at it, right? I mean, the way that it's hard to tell whether Valve actually wanted this way, or they would approach it differently if we had handled them, if we handled it differently. I did have this conversation with them at some point, like what they think about us splitting these events, and they said that's fine with them, but that they would kind of appreciate something to connect the events, to handle it in some way. I don't think that's happened, but like if they wanted to do something about it, they could. I mean, everything has the same name, right? Like everything's under IEM Katowice, so anything that has an IEM Katowice 2025 in it is going to be a qualifier to it in some way, So like if they really wanted to, they could solve it on their end. So I would imagine they're just fine with that. But I can't speak for them, because they never really gave a clear answer on how they would handle this if it was entirely up to them, right? So,
but what is the reason that it counts for less? Is it because it doesn't attribute the prize pool? Okay, then this is, I'm not having a dig at you guys. I'm just trying to understand, because the way you guys do things is for a stats database reason, right?
Partly, I think that's one of the main reasons, yeah.
So can I just put myself in the shoes of a TO? I'm bringing more teams to LAN, but I have no incentive to do so.
Well, that's also about how you structure that LAN, right? Like if you were just excluding part of the competition from the first stage.
What's the point of this? There's no point to this.
Well, I mean, you still get LAN games as like LAN wins are still a factor and all that stuff. I mean, those things factor better, right?
What percentage does that count as compared to if this was included as the whole event?
LAN wins, I think. Oh, wait, let me see this. But LAN wins, I don't think are being calculated that way. I don't think that has anything to do with event weight.
There's something about LAN wins, like you can get up to 10 LAN wins, and the more you get is like a big difference essentially on the ranking. So like it depends on the individual team, right? If the individual team already has 10 LAN wins in the past, whatever, then it doesn't make a big difference. But for a small team that has like 0 going to 5 is a big difference.
But because there's no prize money attributed, like it does have a big impact on how many VRS points.
But you can also say that then those LAN wins don't actually have that big of an impact on anything, right? I mean, first of all, it's only it is literally a close qualifier based on the determination that Valve made, right? Because you're excluding part of the competition from that stage, right? And then it doesn't have as much money on the line as the matches in the main stage, right? So from that perspective, I mean, I think it should count for less. I mean, why wouldn't it?
Well, but so I'm just saying, if I was a TO, I wouldn't run an event. I wouldn't bring more teams to LAN. I would just invite 16 teams.
I understand that, yeah.
So because of the structure, sorry?
Are we going to invite Snappi to
let's get Snappi in here. I don't know if he's going to have stuff to say on this, because he's, unfortunately for him, he's kind of fucking stuck down there in the mud.
Lucas included him, and then he just cut him off.
I didn't see him enter. I was looking at HLTV. Hello, Snappi.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Sorry for keeping you waiting so long, mate. I wanted to ask a couple of questions before we got this one underway. I'm sure you got a lot to say
all
tonight.
good. I have a lot of questions also regarding the world.
Oh, this is great. Okay, nice.
We should have brought on Messioso for this because he has like better.
He's sitting right there as well.
Him.
I can see him as well. I don't think we could bring in another face though, unfortunately. But where do we want to get started tonight? Snappi, there was some tweets coming out of the NIP camp, which is where you find yourself now. You're having to battle through a lot of these qualifiers. You're experiencing the VRS system from the bottom up. So what did you want to touch on first tonight, mate?
No, I really didn't have any agenda. It was like a prop that asked me to come here. I actually think in general the world ranking is a good thing, but there's obviously a lot of things that needs to be ironed out, and also kind of figuring out how make some basic rules as to so teams and TOs and whatnot can actually understand when it's ranked, when it's not ranked, what counts, what doesn't count, all of these things, because like it's been a bit of a jungle here at the start. But I mean, it's obviously expected that there is some starting issues, but I also think if Valve kind of wanna run it, they also kind of need to step up to the plate and obviously do it the correct way.
So what are the biggest struggles that you've run into so far, right? Because you've been playing qualifiers all throughout the start of this year. Obviously, you guys had the Jax situation. It's the full roster now, is it? You're not using Jax anymore, right?
We are for CCT, but what the kind of one of the things that started out happening was that I think the Frost and Fire was supposed to be unranked, and then we pulled out of that, and then suddenly it got its rank back. And then the CCT was supposed to be ranked, but that got its rank pulled, so it was kind of like it's been a bit of a mess with what has been included and what hasn't, and that obviously makes it very hard for the teams to actually figure out what to play and where to kind of not play, right?
Sure. I mean, I think that's kind of thing to where to start this conversation. Like why you're here is just to get the player's perspective of how this looks behind the scenes, because people are obviously going to be like, they could just win all of their games and then it would be perfectly fine. But obviously there's a lot of factors that you need to like take into account when you are playing. I mean, obviously you guys are playing with Jax, which is not even the roster that you built and want to play with, but you got him in essentially just so you can get some wildcard invites to these smaller tournaments, because otherwise you wouldn't be ranked at all. I mean, you're not ranked at all, right? So then you can't get any invites anywhere without that. So you're already kind of working from a disadvantaged position, and then you also need to like prioritize different tournaments that you want to play in order to get these ranking points, to get the wins, to get any ranking, right? Because you need 10 wins to get the rank. And in this whole process, there is this situation that happened that we already spoke about, different tournaments getting their ranking pulled. And like, how does it even work from your side? Like, at what point do you figure out it's like, this tournament that we've been playing like 3 games and now doesn't matter anymore? How does that transpire from your perspective?
Yeah, it obviously sucks because like you kind of just want to get those 10 like games out of the way so you can get a rank and then build from that. But then there was also the thing that I spoke with Striker about, that Valve is, from what I understood, and correct me if I'm wrong, Valve is essentially taking their data from HLTV. Because we obviously went through the open qualifier for Blast, and we qualified, I think there was 4 regions and 1 spot for each, and we beat some the 2 teams, Ecstatic and Nine and some other teams there. And that obviously wasn't included into the world rank. And then my tweet came from the fact that at first, when we were going into the qualifier before the next, like I think there's like 3 stages to it, that wasn't going to be ranked as well because Blast didn't announce their teams or something like this. I'm not exactly sure like how it was, but what it meant was that the games we had actually like achieved to be able to play now weren't going to be ranked. I think Blast fixed that, and kudos to them. I think they found out that this was an issue, and I think they announced all the teams so that those games actually were ranked in the end. But then another thing I found out now from Striker also was that essentially like whether games from open qualifiers ranked or not depends whether HLTV have enough staff of the day to edit. So that obviously means that there's no rules as to when you actually get these games. So when we fight for an open Blast qualifier, and maybe we would have had 2 ranked games from that, had HLTV had enough staff on that given day, then in the Dallas one, like you get 2 world ranking games, I think, from the open qualifier. And like, I think it's hard to kind of figure out if there's no rules as to when is games included and when is games not included, right? And I think obviously this is where Valve probably need to step up to the plate and hire some people so that it doesn't rely on HLTV to get it added. And maybe this was wrong. Striker, correct me if so.
No, I think more or less.
This was kind of what I found out, and I found it super weird that this is kind of how it's happening, because like there should be some default as to, okay, the last game in an open qualifier before you qualify, that's added, and then obviously maybe the closed is added, but it cannot be a base on whether HLTV has enough staff to actually do it.
It's also, I mean, for our prioritization in general, right? I mean, we don't want to cover too much of the open qualifier because it would just spam the site, and like it's not something that we want to do anyway, right? So it's, I mean, there's more factors than that, but of course, again, we shouldn't be the ones deciding.
With this discussion that we had the other day, just quickly, wasn't the takeaway that POs have to get these like licenses anyway? And you were saying, Striker, that for the smaller ones they just click through. But
I think so, yeah.
So couldn't it just become a stipulation with the license that if you are going to be running these events, that you as the TO have to provide the data from the opening point of the qualifier to the end, like to Valve directly? Like, I don't know how they would be able to pass that information. I don't know what format they would require it in. Obviously, they're using I'm using terms I don't know, like API. But you know, they're obviously using HLTV's API to be able to get the data. This would obviously mean that they would have to have more input,
more sources, basically,
right?
Yeah.
But that would give us a more comprehensive picture of everything that is necessary.
Yeah, I think that would be a great solution, right? I mean, they would obviously probably take an extra person on their side, you know, to be able to handle this. But that would be a great way to go about it. You know, if you want to include more games, or if you don't want to be bottlenecked by what we give you, which, I mean, that would be a great thing to have, to be honest. Then yeah, just have the responsibility be on the TO who wants their events ranked, right?
So what data would have to be provided?
I mean, it's results. It's effectively all the results and like how much prize money it would. Let's say we get into a situation. Well, some events we might not cover anyway, you know, that have some prize money, but we just wouldn't cover because it's like whatever number 200 on the world ranking. You know, it's not something that we would be because of prioritization, as I said before. So it could also be prize pool. You know, so anything that we give them, which is effectively team A, team B, result between them, and then how much they earned, how much such team earned at the event, and then some information about the event for the event weight. You know, because that, like, the prize pool of an event plays a factor into that. You know, so like it's not that much data, to be honest. I mean, if you look at our event page and then results, that's effectively what they would need. I mean, but I don't think we give them that much more.
Okay, so the appeal from the community would be to Valve to then push that onus onto the tournament organizers, and then they would have to pass that data into their algorithm. Is that the yeah?
I mean, I guess the reason also why using our data is nice is because we actually verify that this is real, right?
Right.
Because the problem of this idea that you put forward is like who is saying that I, like Joe Johnson, whatever, make a tournament and then like fudge some data, some results inside, right? Because if it goes through HLTV, first we verify it, then also the community, because everyone sees it because it's public. So this is maybe an issue why.
Couldn't the demo be the safe haven?
I guess so then, but then you'd have to also like verify that these demos, and the demos get fucked sometimes, get like corrupted, blah, blah. So, but, and obviously sending a Google Sheet with results versus a Google Sheet plus all of the demos is a bigger thing. But I do agree, like generally what Snappi is saying, when you think about it, it's absolutely silly that that there's no standard to it, right? And as much as there is like a unsaid standard internally in HLTV, I don't think that's enough for, you know, a world ranking and like deciding who is getting points and essentially who's going to the major. Like what we do for ourselves and the use case is not the same as what Valve wants. And I think it has to be a bit more standardized from that point of view. Even if it is, I mean, the worst case would be like no open qualifier stuff is used because you want more matches. And that is the biggest issue we have now, is not enough matches of value being provided. So then there has to be some sort of demand or like a rule from Valve's side about what needs to be covered or whatever. Because if you would compare this to like any other big sport or what I don't know, a tennis, which is the simple, like most similar, I think, in the way the ranking work and the tournaments and stuff. It would be, I don't think you can find something where like randomly a different portion of the tournament is counted toward the ranking, depending on the day. That doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah. So this is a big problem in itself. Snappi, with these qualifiers you're playing, are these for Valve classified tier 1 or tier 2 events, or is it just a mixed bag? It's whatever's available.
No, I think it's only for the LAN events, and this is obviously why it's so important for the teams. If you want to keep an open circuit, there isn't that many qualifiers, so they're pretty hard to get through because it's obviously best of one. We got through one, and then we didn't get through the Dallas one. I think we lost to BC game that just qualified for Dallas in that one. But the issue is the one we were successful at, like we were supposed to get zero. My tweet stemmed off the fact that even in the close portion, we would have gotten 0 ranked matches. So even though we actually go through open qualifier facing professional teams, like paid teams, a lot of them, and then we go into the next stage, we were supposed to get 0 ranked matches. So how are you actually going to climb in a system where that is the case, right? Blast, kudos to them again, fixed it. But again, like there should be some defaults. Some default as to when is it counted and when isn't it counted, because it's kind of right now it's a jungle. You don't know what's in and what's not, right?
Okay.
I mean, it's going to come with some teething issues, right? Anyway, like if you do include more, then you include a hell of a lot more data that you don't know how reliable it is and all that stuff, So we are also useful in that sense because we obviously, we vet tournament organizers, we vet a lot of these things more thoroughly than probably Valve would, in the case of, can we trust that they will actually pay out the prize money that they promise and all that stuff, So we're very handy, let's just say, in that, that they don't have to have an entire team that does this for their purposes, So like it would come with some issues if they started doing this more, especially for the tournaments that are not super well known, right? But there's got to be some way.
But then there's also, I think you also said that, is it correctly assumed that if the Valve ranking that the TOs have to follow is made every month, right? It's not made on a week to week basis.
Yeah, the one that comes invitation is every month.
Yeah, and this is also part of the issue, right? Because this is why Gamer Legion also got kind of screwed over, right?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, that's obviously TOs can do this. Like let's say you would have a weekly one, or you could use the weekly one. TOs could still decide to put it in the middle of an event, but obviously they probably wouldn't want to. They would want, like, if ESL wanted to decide it, I'm sure they would just put it straight after Katowice on that Monday, right? I was wondering what the reason behind this might be, because I asked about it. I never really got a straight answer. And I wasn't sure whether it was just like to prevent some manipulation of like TOs only putting it after their events, to kind of prevent other tournaments to impact what teams they invite, and all that stuff. I don't know if that could be the reason, or if it's just because they're not actually 100% sure that they all update it on a weekly basis on the same day of every week. Like who knows what the reason could be, but that's where it is at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's some of the things that needs to quickly be ironed out, alongside the fact that there needs to be some standards set for when they're ranked and not.
I mean, yeah, I wanted to ask about the letter and the IP stuff, but you can chat if you have something better. Just go for it.
No, I was about to pivot into the letter, right? Because the takeaway at the end of the letter is essentially the appeal to Valve to have major qualifiers back, right? And or at least of some variety. So it doesn't really, in terms of what we had before, in terms of like the issue that I think that the whole concept of this was meant to do is mitigate the qualifiers overlapping with other tournaments throughout the year, right? So that we could just run events. And then the whole point was these events are meant to educate Valve on a large scale of which the best teams in the world are, and those teams would then be invited to the major or the major regional qualifiers based off of their ranking. But because we have the issue of being able to break into the ranking and the collection of the data is causing a bottleneck on how true the data actually is, we find ourselves in a problem where the appeal is, from this letter, the takeaway, to have an open qualifier of some variety back. But this is me probably being a little bit too hard line. There would have to be a line drawn on that too. Like how many spots, and would those spots be for the MRQ? And Where do we like? Is it just?
I think this kind of defeats the whole purpose of what Valve is trying to achieve, though. I mean, that's very clearly the way that they wanted to go in the first place. I mean, they removed open qualifiers already before we got into the system, right? So that was for Copenhagen.
There's inadequacies to what they're doing that we're highlighting now, right?
Yeah.
So are we just
no? But let's say they wanted to just have the pressure spread across the entire circuit, right? And so as long as, like, when I was thinking about this, I think, to be honest, whether you have them as a like specifically tied to a major or not, I don't think actually matters that heavily. Like, let's say, obviously, you know that it comes.
You mean the open qualifiers?
Yeah, open qualifiers. Because let's say you just do the same thing that you do prior to a major. You just have an open qualifier run, but instead of to a major, you will have it to a big event. If you have a decent result at a big event, you're probably going to get into the invite spots for the MRQ anyway. Like, you just need one decent result at a big event, you're probably going to get into a MRQ. So whether you have it straight to the major or you have it like kind of by proxy through the big events, I don't think really matters that much. It would probably be easier for the majors, you know, like, let's say, because maybe it would go straight, or I don't know how it would work. But in general, I think the premise of having an open way to the major is still there, because just the pressure isn't specifically before the major, but it's kind of like more opportunities during the year to do that.
But isn't I think this is kind of what part of the issue is right now, is that I think there's only really one event where that is possible, and that is only one slot for Lisbon, right?
Dallas? Oh, no, Dallas, no.
Oh, that's
after the fact.
So essentially, like, the only way for teams to get to the major, which isn't already highly ranked, is to go through open qualifier, go through the next qualifier, and then go through Blast, I think, Rising, where there is one slot to Lisbon, and then do good at Lisbon. So essentially a team would have to probably win like 20 matches in a row in order to go to the major.
But I think it's like, that's obviously going to be the first season, right? And that's partly because of how TO's kind of decided on the invite dates and stuff, and now obviously where the cutoff is. But like, all these events that are going to happen like after that cutoff, like, in the end, they're still going to be kind of counting towards the second invites for the major, right? So like, in the end, it's going to even itself out. Yeah,
but I obviously agree. Like, with the next major, I think, like, at that time, like, there has been a lot of events. I guess the appeal kind of taps into the fact that it is literally impossible unless you made the 20 match run going into Blast Lisbon,
right? Yeah.
To actually make the major for any team.
I mean, the first one, yeah. I mean, if you are starting from zero, I understand. I don't know.
But even like, how is the teams, like, maybe they could get there, I guess, by winning 2 or 3 CCTs like this.
Yeah, I think that's probably possible. I mean, we will see soon what the CCT impact is like at like around that level, right? Yeah. Because we have the first one ending in a few days, I think, in like 4 days. The playoffs are starting tomorrow or something.
But don't you think it's an issue to apply a system that isn't kind of
ironed out?
It isn't ironed out and ready for this major, but it might be for the next one.
I don't think that's necessarily to do with the system as much as how the cutoffs ended up working out. I mean,
but don't you
still had, like, let's say you just started this a little bit earlier, right? Like, you still had late last year to kind of make your case, because it's a 6-month period that you make your case in a VRS. You're talking about it because, of course, we only have 3 months under the new system, but we still had the last 2 months of last year for you to make that case for this major, you know? So, like, of course, you can't really make such a strong case in a 3-month period where half of that, or like, let's say the first month of that, you couldn't play anything anyway, because that's half of it is the break, the second half of it is only the big events, you know? So like, you have 2 months to make your case under the new system. I don't know if there was a solution to that, to be honest.
But isn't it also part of the issue that it kind of incentivizes organizations or investors to not get into CS because of the way the system is made?
But I think if you enter at, like, let's say you enter in April, you know, or something, or then you have actual 6 months under the new system to try to make your case for the major before the next invites go out. Let's say it's October, same way as now, you know, 2 months before the major. I mean, 6 months overall with how much is going to be in that period, I think that's like a reasonable amount of opportunities, you know. Like, as a new team, I understand those problems.
Aren't you talking about like 2 different things? Like, essentially Snappi side, or what they have in the letter is like this major right now, and what it actually means, and like how to actually qualify for this major. I do think there is a decent case for it, and ultimately, when you look at, I don't know, the teams that were top 24, like Europe, essentially the teams that will be invited into the major cycle, from the MRQ upwards in Europe are pretty much the same teams that were there last year for the major, like for the last major in Shanghai. Like there's minimal change up and down. So I think the last question for Snappi before we move on is as a insanely big hater of the partner system, at least an outspoken critic of the partner system. We took a partner system dead, and somehow your situation is even worse than before. Can you just speak from a personal perspective? Can you just tell me how you feel right now?
I feel fine because, like, I think for me, the partners, like I said it multiple times, the issue was never the partner system for me. I actually think that was quite fine. The issue was the lack of opportunity for teams outside of the partner system. Like, I was never against the partner system. I think it was a good way potentially to have teams operate and invest into CS. So just because I was outspoken against one like flawed system and one TO at the time didn't mean I was against the partner system. I think in general it's a good thing that the system is opened up, but I also think that obviously when you make a new system, you also need to kind of, especially Valve, if they want to run it, they need to invest the resources into actually running it the correct way, and that also means actually taking responsibility for adding the matches so it doesn't rely on HLTV having enough employees on the day, or like general stuff like making sure that there is enough opportunities for team to actually get in, because if the world ranking is decided by 6 month basis, right, even if you qualify for an open qualifier and it's not like counted from the open, it's counted from maybe the closed, okay, maybe you get 3 or 4 or 5 matches in there, but like you need 10 matches, so it's not enough to just make one. You need to make 2, 3, 4 potentially, right? Or you need to have like a one super run. Like one super run will get you in there, that's for sure, right? But this is obviously a big, like, doesn't really help organizations that want to invest into teams like regarding talents, because can they actually rely on a team making a Cinderella run and going straight to Lisbon, for example, winning 20 matches in a row? They probably can't, which incentivizes TOs, teams or organization or investors to not invest into CS, because like the risk of it is simply too big. Why are they going to invest like, let's say $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month into a team? Like even if they're like on salaries, let's say $2,000 a month, like then there's obviously boot camps, whatnot, right? Why would they invest that if the opportunity is so small? So I think there needs to be some way of where like Valve include some of these open qualifiers, but also make sure that there is enough opportunity to get ranked matches and build into the system without having to make it through open qualifiers where there's one slot, for example. We'll see how it works in the future, but this is kind of one of the fears I have, that why would anyone invest? Why would I don't see it. Like I wouldn't do it, I think.
If there was, because this is one of the concerns we had last year when we started seeing the formats that TOs were putting out, was that there were TOs who were just literally running invitations based off of the VRS with no open qualifiers. Like, I feel strongly, and I felt it then as well, that every event should still have open qualifier slots. I don't know how many open qualifier slots it should have, but it still should have qualifier slots of some variety that people can at least try and play for. Because that was the fear. I remember late last year when we started to get details about the Striker and Prof, we were like, well, this is just going to be more closed than it was before, because how are people even meant to compete for points if they're unable to try and contend these events? And then most of the formats, when they initially came out, got rid of them. Like, you look at ESL, for example, they got rid of their entire, well, not their entire, they still run like online leagues and stuff for ESEA and shit. But there used to be all the DreamHack events that then got labeled as the ESL Challenger events. That was like essentially what was keeping the tier 2 circuit running for a while there, at least as far as like a lot of LAN events was concerned.
Yep.
But there's no incentive for them to run those events. Yeah. There's no incentive for them to run those events anymore in the current system. So like all that stuff's just gone down the fucking drain. So we're just, I
think it's also unfortunate that a lot of these TOs that do want to make a difference or do want to come into the space and do something now that like they think that it's been allowed, is that they've tried to bit off way more than they could chew. You know, like you look at Sky Esports, you know, they thought that they would be able to get a bunch of big teams. They realized that was not going to happen. You know, now they're downscaling, but they're still calling it a tier 1 tournament when they're not really actually going to get any tier 1 teams. Like realistically, I don't see who would commit to a tournament like this at this point, you know. So like if we actually had those TOs start small, we would have had a lot more opportunities, especially online, you know. Like I understand that maybe it would turn out that they would actually realize that it's not worth it for them to run those events in the first place, you know. But it's sure as fuck isn't worth it for you to run 500,000 events for teams that are going to start from number 15, you know, or 20 or whatever. Like, it's such a massive fucking undertaking.
But even if that was done, would it even make a difference in the end? Because two of the main factors in this code is prize money and LAN events, right? So,
yeah. But you can see
like, at what point would it even make a difference almost?
But look at them, Imperial, right? I mean, the female tournaments weren't that high of a prize pool, like 100K last year, you know. And so, like, of course, they won a couple of them, and that's kind of what helped them. But realistically, it's not huge events that got them to a place where.
But they got a lot of their points through LAN wins, right? Because it's only the 10 best matches that are counted, right? So essentially, that means that you need to get to LAN to actually get high up in the rank. But unless, as I said, you have like a Cinderella run as a smaller organization, like that's not happening.
Yeah. At this point, I think what Prof or Chad was saying about the challenger events and that stuff like that is entirely missing now, because there's very few LANs happening that are for those tournaments. You know, maybe there are some local things happening at the moment, but a lot of those are national, and like, you're not going to, like, most of our teams are international and all that stuff. So it's just missing kind of like the step in between where you would have a stepping stone for these teams and a bit more of an open way. It's just kind of unfortunate that hosting LANs like that, clearly, you know, with ESL deciding to stop, is just not worth it on a you know, on a business level. Like, it's just not going to have the return if you don't have the good teams in them, you know. And if you're hosting a 100K tournament when fucking even PGL is hosting like 1 million plus tournaments, you know, like, none of the big teams are going to go to your tournaments, you know, like not even top 10, probably not even like top 15, you know, because those guys already have the way in, you know, they can always play on all that stuff, you know. So this little stepping stone is really missing at the moment.
Okay. All right. Snappi, do you have anything else you want to get out there before we move on, mate? Because we got a crazy schedule tonight.
I'm learning on the go myself, so I think it was fine. I felt I learned a little bit just from coming on tonight, because I think Strike and the guy you're getting on now is a lot more of an expert than me. But yeah, I think the main takeaway for me is like there needs to just be some kind of guidelines as to Graham stuff. Like some guidelines as to when matches are ranked, but also find like how is it you get that stepping stones for the teams or the TOs organization wanting to come into the space, so that it actually is incentivized to invest into CS. Because I think that is obviously one of the biggest losses, is that the tier 2 teams or like new investors have been incentivized not to invest into CS, because like the system have been pretty much closed down for new entities.
Yeah. Yes. All right. We're going to quickly jump to a break. Thank you for your time, Snappi. I will be right back and we'll continue tonight's conversation. All right. Be right back, everyone.
The world is changing quickly. Shut up.
The world is changing, but one thing remains the same: victories with 1xbet.
Sell in-game items at the best prices in just a couple of clicks. We are the biggest instant sell service for in-game items like Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, and Rust. Easy selling process and instant withdrawal of funds to the most popular payment methods. More than 140,000 deals and 50,000 active sellers every month. Use promo code HLTV5 and get a 5% bonus on the sale of your skins. Skin Place. Sell items now.
It was more than a game. It was everything. Every single emotion on display. Not a moment missed. This was CS:GO through the lens.
All right, thanks for bearing with us. We're just in a quick little ad break right there. That was Snappi who joined us to give some of his thoughts from a player perspective. And now we got Teemu joining us, who is this the Chief Growth Officer at YaLLa Campus? Is that your title still?
Yeah, that's the official title. I would say so. Yeah.
All right. Well, I met you in Shanghai, right?
Yep.
Yeah, in an elevator with ZywOo.
Yep.
But yeah, look. So YaLLa Compass, one of the events that's popped up over the last couple of years, and now you've been thrown into the deep end with this whole VRS situation. What is the biggest hurdles that you guys have had to tackle since Valve have changed the rules and regulations?
Well, I would say plenty of those. I've been doing the whole, Counter-Strike Tier 2, Tier 1 since, back in my earlier days, and now with YaLLa for, good portion of almost a decade. And, even for me, it took a little bit of a learnings of how to actually, imply all of the rules. And, you guys saw what we did in January, didn't go as planned, so to speak. And we changed a lot of things. And, listening even today, I think I learned a little bit more as well. So it's, it's been definitely an interesting ride. And this is actually something that, me and Prof even had a small conversation of today, the importance of open qualifiers and, the situation of Tier 2. It's, it's never been in this place. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, a few more hurdles than I imagine what we're traditionally used to. Now, when we start the conversation about having to invite teams, and we were just talking about qualifiers and open qualifiers, when you look at it from a TO perspective, you can look at it and go, okay, well, if we run open qualifiers, it's good for the community, but you don't have to do it. So, like, if I put myself in the business person's shoes, why would I run open qualifiers? Like, I wouldn't need to. Valve doesn't tell me I have to. Where does YaLLa, or where do you find yourself looking with situations like that?
Yeah, well, the original idea, of course, for us was to run plenty of open qualifiers, but on a wrong, different a format. And moving forward, we do want to have open qualifiers. They are not bad business, to be honest. Any matches in Counter-Strike that have relevance, it's not like a bad business per se. And of course, then as if you're the biggest TO, then you have to of course prioritize your resources. But a up and coming TO like us, challenging the ecosystem, us running open qualifiers, it's not bad business, and more importantly, it's something that the ecosystem and the community needs as well.
Don't you have hurdles with things like getting your hands on like proper platforms to do it on, and then there's the whole anti-cheat conversation and everything like that? Like, aren't they deterrents?
Well, previously we just used, there's always Faceit, and of course now ZywOo has a esport and he's working on that as well. So I would say there are platforms, and they can be quite cost efficient, because at the end of the day, the platforms want your business, they want your matches, they want the content there. So a running open qualifiers, specifically to just do it, a weekend, let's call it a 1,028 teams or less, it's not that big of a hurdle and not that big of a cost.
So you're doing this in the future, you're saying, but I guess for a lot of teams, a lot of TOs, just like coming into the new year, having to figure out so much shit, the open qualifiers were the easiest things to just say, like, let's not deal with it now because we have other stuff going on.
That's exactly where we are. So, as I said, I wanted to, but then, quickly realized the issues that it, did bring to us. So it's easier to not have them currently until we figure out how we can do them correctly to make sure that everything is aligned. As you know, I've been listening here for an hour and everybody's still figuring out. And what we don't want to do is do something wrong, and that way be, a penalized or again, we try to go by the rules, and we need to make sure that, everything when we do the open qualifiers are in line with the regulations.
I don't know if you heard what we were saying before about the open qualifiers lacking, the HLTV not covering all portions of open qualifiers, which means data is lacking on Valve's end to update the VRS correctly. And then what has kind of come out as a fix to that could be the TO having to provide said data to Valve. Is that something that you think is a reasonable expectation of a TO? Is that something that you feel like you guys could do at YaLLa to help mitigate the problems?
Well, I don't see any reason to put it on us. But anyways, we're playing it on a platform that has all of that data. That's more than integrating that data from Faceit or any other third-party platform. And this should be quite easy thing to do. I don't know why we would then extract the data from that platform to us and then hand it over.
Okay, so I guess then that would become a conversation with the TOs who are running these events.
Just to be this like passing on the responsibility from like HLTV took it, put it to the TO. TO is like, fuck it, face it, you can take this.
No, it's I'm pragmatic.
But it makes
person.
sense. It makes sense, but it's just kind of funny to see how it gets like this little responsibility gets passed on.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way: you have ESL owning Faceit, you have PGL owning already a platform as well. So any of the bigger TO, and Plast is pretty much the only one not having their own platform. So it's pretty much the same if it's a TO or the platform in case of the two big ones.
Yeah, because I think that that could become a conversation of when you pay to use their platform for these qualifiers, that it becomes part and parcel of the process that they would then provide the data from the qualifier to Valve, right? That could become an extension of already what you would be paying for, or maybe at a small added cost or something. Here we go. I'm upselling for ES Portal and Faceit right now. But that seems to be one of the issues at the moment as far as the curation of the ranking points goes for teams to get involved in it. You said before there's value in like open qualifiers for you guys. Is that just in terms of having matches being streamed?
Yeah, I gotta say, of course, the match has to be streamed to have any value. So you need to then think about a little bit how you structure your open qualifiers. At least have some of the matches like at the end, let's say from round 16 upwards or so stream. That creates then value. And of course, this is also a little bit of a dependent on the team quality and etc. But like I said, first of all, they're not that expensive. You look at these massive events having millions and millions and millions of dollars of budget. You were calling having an open qualifier for that is peanuts. It's not that expensive.
But is that a problem from a kind of manpower perspective, or is it just more like that you guys have enough admins to deal with this?
Or again, for us, it's more about making sure that we go by the guidelines, and I'm sure with other TOs as well currently, just to make sure that everything you check all of the boxes. I would have at least hoped so that more open qualifiers and more opportunities in the future for teams. It was heartbreaking listening to Snappi, and I even know their situation. And we look at, for example, our invites for our own event, as we didn't announce that we have wildcard invites. I'm not actually even sure can we include them as a wildcard invite anymore into our close qualifiers, because we might be breaking the rules. But I would love to for example give NIP the chance in the close qualifiers. Maybe you guys know better. Am I allowed to invite them at this stage?
I mean, they have been so far, and nobody's complained. So I think they're fine. They're the events that they played haven't had their status pulled because they got invited. So I think it's fine.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like I do like a lot of the changes, and I as you guys mentioned, it's teething pains at this stage. Once we get the handle on this, and everybody understands the actual framework where we are, I'm sure we will see more TOs doing more open qualifiers, more tier 2 opening up. The only issue is which I currently have is how we can expand, above the rank 50 on the really important matches, because I see that being kind of a, even with, let's say, us having 28 teams on a tier 2 tournaments, I have a hard time seeing that, not filling up when we hit 50. Yeah. So how do we basically, get from that stage so that there's teams between 50 and 100 participating in these tournaments? One way is, of course, just adding. So you have 2 tier 2 events running at the same time. Then you have 48 teams competing in these, tournaments already, fixing a little bit of that issue.
I was actually looking through, like I had like a little sheet on like when I was checking the what's the teams got invited to what events and all that stuff. Like just to kind of put a number on this. So the last team invited to the CCT 17 close qualifier was number 69. Realistically, it was actually a bit less because maybe like 10 less because a bunch of teams before that didn't exist in the first place, like outdated cores and all that stuff. So that 50, 60-ish kind of barriers like that. That's where we are at the moment, at least in Europe. I mean, of course, other ones are going to look a little bit different.
Is the I guess the question is like what could be done in theory, and I'm thinking like obviously we have like tier 1, tier 2 events. Does it make sense to make like a tier 3 event, like as a concept within the VRS or the Valve rules, whatever, that could have some more leniency, but only invite teams like below 50 in the world or some shit like this? Because this is where teams are like so bad that even playing against each other, how much can it put them, higher, but then also limit the prize pool, right? So they can't jump too much. Like if it was like tier 3 event can have 50,000 or less in prize pool, and they can invite below 50 in the world ranking or some shit like this.
The only issue I see, like I like the idea in theory, but then you are looking most likely having the same production cost of running this tier 3 than you have in tier 2, and not the monetization. You're missing a lot of. No one's
gonna do it anyway.
Yeah. So then if you would go like who would run this, that would be basically whoever run these would be just losing money doing so.
Yeah, I mean, we see some. I mean, effectively, that's how tier 2 works in a lot of ways at the moment, right? I mean, like if you look at the ESEA circuit, like a lot of it is teams way below that. I mean, the first whatever stage of ESEA, I don't remember how they call it now, but that's teams that are effectively just signing up to play something a lot of the time, just sometimes complete mixes and all that stuff. Like it will be. That's effectively tier 3, even though technically it probably counts as a tier 2 qualifier. Any local tournament is a tier 2 event, just filtered down to specific countries, or regional events, are effectively tier 3 tournaments, just classified as a tier 2, So like these things are happening already without there being any like specific determination, because the tier 2 is wide enough, and you can filter the VRs down to almost any demographic you want, and host an event under that demographic, that it is possible to do this in the first place.
Yeah, and like I said, the easy fix is just have more. Have tier 2 multiple events at the same time. So if you look CCT, they're having I don't know how many tier 2 tournaments this year, probably close to 6 to 10 at least. We're gonna have next year I think 6. We're adding those amount as we go. So let's say you start having 20, 30 tier 2 events with at least $50,000 to $100,000 as a prize pool. These will overlap because all of these events usually last for a month. So you'll looking at having 2-3 events running every single month. That will expand, and every single one of these usually have 20, 30 teams competing. That way you start having like 100 teams participating in these tournaments. Then I don't know how much the quality of teams and prize pool comes into the play of how much people are actually getting points. As long as the logic makes sense, I would say that's one easy fix of starting to see some of these top 100 teams at least, getting some points, getting some matches, gaining some ranks. And on that note as well, you guys mentioned, a Sky Sports not, doing a $500,000 tournament, maybe not having any top 16 teams. I don't see that as bad either. This
I don't
way.
think it's bad. I think it just doesn't make sense from a business perspective.
Well, that might be it, depending on their business model. And not saying it might, you never know, but. That being said, as long as let's say you can run a profitable business and having teams that are not all top 60, maybe even none of them, great. Then you have these teams that are in top 30 actually getting more pressure to the top 10 teams. Like, hey, you guys may want to also participate in some tournaments before we come and get your ranking.
Yeah, I mean the same thing goes for you guys, right? Like for you guys, the biggest kind of hurdle is going to be getting those top teams to your events, because of how much is happening for those.
Yeah, and we know our place, and specifically as we are not incentivizing the teams as much as the the other TOs, specifically this year. But let's just say we did our first last year, was quite decent setup. I'm pretty sure we have a quite decent setup on this year as well, and moving 26, 27. I'm sure we will be in a similar level with the other big TOs. I don't see any reason why not, as long as we can do the same incentivizes as others.
It's quite a positive outlook, no, Chad? I was just going through the kind of open letter that NIP put together and then a lot of teams signed. I mean, there was a big line about the tier 2 and open qualifiers, which was effectively that tier 2 tournament organizers cannot hold open qualifiers because it's too much of a resource tank and like too many, like not enough manpower to hold those tournaments.
So this
Sounds
is a
like it's
different
not that
story,
bad.
right? Yeah. But I think the other thing is as well that the teams are feeling right now is helpless to be able to qualify for the first major of this year. And you only can see as far in front of you as really the big event, right?
Yeah,
So
that's the goal, right?
Yes.
That everyone sees now. And then after that, you can reset and see on a global thing. But now it feels very hopeless, yeah.
Yeah. But let's look at Mongols, for example. They came into our first event, won that, and where are they currently in the world? I remember inviting them. They were maybe top 16, top 20 at best, and now I think they're dingling around top 3. So, going into these events, making it, like I said, today I invite Mongols to our event. Everybody goes like, hey, perfect, like top notch team. I invite Mongols last year when they were not in the top 10, coming as a dark horse. So my point being, even from storytelling point, the teams might not be today top 10, but participating in these tournaments, that's the way how you get into that top 10.
All right, I got one final one, and then we're going to wrap up and bring Graham in because we're on a tight schedule tonight. I'm sorry, but thank you for your time so far, Teemu. I just want to ask one that I'm a little bit curious on. How does it go for a TO that isn't ESL, Blast, or PGL communicating with Valve? Do you have an open line?
Yeah, I'm quite happy. It took me plenty of time, but let's say they've been their activeness specifically this year. So that's something that I need to give a big kudos to the team. They've been really active on our conversation, also helping us. As I said, it's a good thing overall. I helping TOs, helping this to shape up. Like I said, there's multiple solutions how we can fix, for example, the tier 2 issues. Just once we get we get our speed of knowing what we can do, we will figure it out. But like I said, one example, having an active conversation with Valve, I would say they're probably treating us as equal as any other, and it's a really appreciative relation.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time this evening. I appreciate it. And look, if I wasn't on such a time crunch, we probably could have got longer tonight. But it's unfortunate I got to cut the show hard tonight on 2 hours. So thank you for your time. I'm sure we're going to have plenty of more conversations in the coming months about the VRS and how it shapes up. And if we have another one of these, we'll be sure to get you on and see where you're at, see where YaLLa's at, and see how things are developing.
Sounds good. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Okay, cool. We will get Teemu out. We'll bring Graham in. Now, we had Graham on the first time we had one of these conversations last year. For those people, this is Messioso from Complexity. We'll get him dragged in, and he is dragged in, and we'll get him whacked on. He's here. We can hear him. Graham, talk again. You talk into your microphone, Graham.
Hold on. I was looking at my other screen. How's that?
Thank you, Graham. That's what we wanted to hear. Thank you. We can hear you now. Okay.
Graham, look at my other screen. One sec.
Yeah, awesome. Now, Graham, you've been listening along.
Am I live?
Right now, yeah, you're on. We can only see your machine in the background there, but yeah, you're on. Well, Graham, you've been listening along to the conversation. Is there anything that sticks out to you that we've been discussing that you want to follow up on?
Yeah, there was one thing actually that I think Teemu mentioned, which I think would be a really easy thing for Valve to fix. At every ranking they send, they should just have at the very bottom of the ranking, there should just be a list of wildcard eligible players. And then any combination of those 3 players can get you a wildcard event for that ranking. And then it just clears up everything. Simple.
Okay, look, we're finding solutions here. Look at this.
Yeah, thanks Teemu for that.
And then people, like organizations, can actually look at that pool of players and give them jobs, because that makes it much easier for them.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like if Jax isn't fleecing NIP for like $10,000 a game, like honestly, like he's actually doing it wrong. Like,
he's just a good guy. He just wants to play. Jackie. He's
that may be the case, but like I'm not trying to give it like a retired / semi-retired top 8 player from the last year a job, but like just to make things simpler for everyone. That would be that
would be pretty helpful. I think.
To be fair, if you just kind of scrape the GitHub and then just like filter out top 8 players or like top 8 teams.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Like, it's not that hard to.
Because the ranking, it does, but the thing is, the rankings from 2024 don't go back the whole year, do they? Because they only implemented the change to the new system halfway through. So you'd have to actually go back through the history. of the GitHub,
okay.
and it would be a little more.
Fair
Again, people are making lots of complaints about how complicated the GitHub is. I think that's a bit too far.
Fair enough.
Like, to make it simple.
I got one for you, Graham. Now I don't know if you caught me. I was trying to push back on Striker, and obviously he represents HLTV. It's just the HLTV logo. That's his face.
Yes.
I was saying that for the stage 1 or play-ins, you can use whatever lingo you want. That it feels like, you guys aren't getting as many ranking points as you possibly could.
Yeah, I mean, I was the one that brought
that
this up, right? I flagged it publicly, but I've been talking to Striker about this for months. Like, he knows about it, and I know that he's been speaking to ESL about it as well. Like, this isn't a new problem for him. This is just something. This is how he is.
Actually, not a problem for him at all. It's a problem for you.
Well, yeah, okay.
So maybe.
That's fair. That's fair. But actually, no. You say a problem for ESL. What's incentivizing ESL to run Katowice as a 24-team event next year? If there's no value in it, why don't they just run a 16-team event like PGL?
I think it's the dick measuring contest, obviously. Why
why
were they
would
running it as a 24-team before?
Because it already was.
Because they wanted to make the event the biggest event, but if the first half of the event doesn't count for anything and it's not valuable, then why would they run it? Like, it doesn't provide. It clearly isn't considered valuable to everyone.
Do you think ESL gets value from Valve ranking points? I don't think that increases or decreases.
I think they spend
value.
a lot of money on 8 extra teams for half a week. Where if they suddenly feel like, hey, this isn't driving value, like, why do it?
That is true, but
we as
ESL, can you just like put your fingers in your ears? Don't listen to this. Like, keep it 24 teams. Make it 32 teams.
I think we should want TOs to run events with more teams on LAN.
I agree. Which is why it makes no sense that the first half is not valued more. I mean, yes, you can get the LAN wins. I know you can get the LAN wins. You can get like 2 LAN wins, right?
2 LAN wins, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's valuable if you're a team that has 0 LAN wins. Like, that's like, what, 120 points or something? But it's not really going to drive that much value.
Honestly, don't think LAN wins really matter to top 20 almost at all, because really. they all have basically maxed out or close to maxed out.
Prize money.
Like, that part stops mattering to a certain point, and it only matters to the tier 2, or whatever you want to call it. So LAN wins, like, at the top, don't like it. It's not an incentive. It's really just the prize pool. And yeah, I mean, bounty offered also comes
again
into it.
From a business perspective. This is, like I said before, I understand why ESL aren't running any of their challenger events anymore, because it doesn't make any sense for them.
I'm not sure it made sense before, but
I mean, business-wise, it never made money. To be honest,
I think the difference is you can't even get the teams you used to get to challenger events now, because it's like so much more complicated and convoluted to get the invites, go through a list of fucking 30 teams until you get people that might accept. It's just.
I think you get better teams this now than you did last time.
No, why?
Well, because they start at rank 9. I mean, but Spirit, G2, Mongols, Vitality, FaZe, Na'Vi, Eternal Fire, Mouse, they're not accepting anyway. So, like, but then you've got teams like Falcons, Liquid, Furia. Like, you gave Liquid how much shit for not accepting Cluj? They would accept a fucking ESL Challenger event. 100%.
I mean, of course, they're accepting ESL event.
$100,000 versus a 1.25 million or whatever. Like, if they don't.
No.
Like, they don't.
Gaming Legion, rank 13. They just missed out on their invite to 3 events. So they'd accept a challenger event. Like 3D Max, Astralis, Pain, Mibba, Big. We'd all accept it. I guarantee.
Yeah, but I think the top 10 teams is where you kind of struggle, because that just doesn't help them.
But how many top 10 teams ever went to ESL challenger events?
They always had like 1 or 2. They always had like 1 at least. And I don't think that would happen anymore. And I think that was a big driver. I mean, if you have 1 top 10 team at your event, if it's the right top 10 team, like, it's actually decent. That's decent viewership. Like, that's somebody.
Don't we want to facilitate? At what point for tier 2 events? Do you start the invite?
9.
So you wouldn't be inviting those guys anyway. You'd be
technically 2.
I mean, 2, yeah,
teams.
2, yeah. Right? I usually had 1 like somewhere on the edge, or 1 somewhere deeper, like, or a couple even, like at one point Monty were like super deep into it, and all that. But I mean, my point is that I think it would be harder to get the bigger ones now, especially because you just have to invest a lot more to incentivize that, because teams, okay, let's say partnerships and revenue share outs, like, aside, all those teams are going to go to a PGL event instead, because it's literally 13 times as valuable as an ESL challenger used to be, So, like, it's just, there's going to be a lot more opportunities for those teams to play with, like, Fisher on top of it as well, massive prize money. So, like, these 100K events, honestly, like unless it's online and like it's for the sub top 20 that really need a place to go to earn points, I don't think that would be enough of an incentive to top 10 teams or like top 15 teams that much, to be honest.
But then isn't there something inherently wrong with that? Like, shouldn't we be encouraging like LAN?
Yeah.
Over online, but then the way that this is sounding is it doesn't make sense doing LAN.
I don't actually think we need to encourage more LANs for the top 15 or top 20 because we already have a lot of those. It's more the outside of that we have a problem with.
But wouldn't it do that for the so let's just use your logic, right? You're going to say
my point is that TOs don't want to do that because they don't get any of the good teams to kind of balance out the fact that they have a lot of teams that don't drive the viewership, you know. So they need one or two to be able to drive a lot of the viewership so that it makes sense business wise, right? And if that doesn't, then you're doing it for the purpose of the circuit, which, I mean, of course, if you want to invest into the circuit, if you really want to spend money on that, but it's not going to return that much value to you, right? I'm just talking about kind of like extreme examples, right? But I think that's a decent reason for teams, for TOs or like ESL that don't want to run 100K events because nobody good is going to go to them, because those teams that previously said yes have a lot more to say yes to now. It's more about the sub top 20 that will have much more of an incentive to go to those events, because those are the ones missing LAN wins. Those are the ones missing any prize money at all, you know, to be able to climb. So I think like those events suddenly become like a tier below even.
So how do we incentivize that from?
I fixed it.
Okay.
I fixed it.
He's going to tell a joke. He's
No.
It's not going to be serious.
No, I'm being deadly serious here.
Okay.
All right, so this is the reverse of the wildcard system. So you know how it's like, So you know how like tier one organization if they run 3 events, they could run 1 wildcard event. How about the reverse? For every like 2 tier 1 event, you have to run a tier 2 event.
Okay.
Of the same quality. So if you run tier 2 tier 1 global LANs, you have to run a tier 2 global event.
I would like that. And what if at all tier 1 events you actually have to have open qualifiers?
I'm indifferent on that. I don't really care that much. I mean, sure, yeah. Like, if we could just stop running open qualifiers during other events, like that would be the bigger thing for me.
Yeah,
like,
but if we run enough, it doesn't matter.
But isn't that like let's say they just held the requirement to hold a quals qualifier like seriously, you know, like let's say the quals qualifier requirement that we thought was a requirement that is not anymore. Let's say that was just taken seriously. Isn't that effectively a tier 2 event?
Which was what?
No, because tier 2 events get the full value of their prize money as you.
Right, yeah, of course.
Yeah, the trap
enough.
card's been activated there.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, we could solve this by including the stage 1 in the fucking event page on HLTV and call it just all Katowice, and then all the teams would get 100% of the points.
But
look,
Chad,
Well, no, even if you take that away, like at least put their prize money to the amount of prize money that the teams in that stage who are eliminated earn, which is more than 0.
Right. I don't know why Valve look at it that way, because
it's like $80,000, right?
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, for that,
stage
I don't
Katowice.
like this is obviously fault of the Valve system. Like, of course, we say other because we kind of want the big event to have the full amount rather than separate it into 2 places, which is, by the way, something ESL wanted us to do. And then, you know, like Valve could just add up whatever prize money those teams earned that went out of the playing stage, and then make that the value of the event. You know, rather than I'm assuming they just take our overall prize money that we have in that bracket and they use that number instead of, you know, adding up the actual prize pools.
Explain to people, because people are probably completely lost about what you're talking about. But IEM Katowice on HLTV is like main event, which is top 16, and then there is play-in.
But stage 1 and stage 2.
Okay, bro. Yeah, of course.
Because Blast Austin is going to be stage 1 and stage 2, which are going to be closed qualifiers. Stage 3 is going to be the full event.
But they count as 100% from stage 1, Graham.
Shanghai did not.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
And Valve doesn't it tell you something
so
that Valve
major
don't care about that?
doesn't count?
I said that, Chad. That was literally the example in my tweet. Was the Shanghai major? It was
Were you not paying attention
matches.
earlier, Chad? I said this literally earlier in this show that majors per stage that is exactly the same thing.
Come on, man.
Honestly, yeah. Honestly, Chad, you should be on our side, because
I want people to get more points.
It's fucking stupid, bro. It's fucking stupid, and just stop doing it. And instead, you know what they can do? Instead of 24 teams, invite more teams. Invite 32 teams, and all start at the same time. Fucking problem solved.
I did
What
actually build a
about-
format to run it in the same amount of time.
Okay.
There we go.
What's the format?
Full best of 3 as well.
What's the format?
It's in a spreadsheet somewhere.
I mean, it's like
Find
a
it.
it's
Come
like
on,
an
Graham.
extra round, right? And
Come
like
prepared.
extra round of Swiss
Like
effectively.
32,
yeah, no, it's still
32
Swiss.
teams is 32 teams Swiss. It's not even that long. It's like 5 games.
Yeah.
So it's,
Oh, it's
fine.
6 rounds, right? I think it
it's
works
six. I
out.
think it
To,
might
it
be
must be
6
one
rounds,
extra.
Yeah. So
I
easy.
scheduled it. It all fits within the same amount of time.
Yeah,
Last
yeah.
added to the event.
I mean,
I
of
think
course
you lose a rest day, so like the broadcast gets longer. But I mean, I think that's worth it.
Who cares about the people working behind the scenes, Graham?
I mean, longer broadcast is good. That is the
course,
value.
yeah.
The value is not in the Valve ranking system. It is in people watching, and that's why
Not
I
with
play
how
in.
much I get paid, Prof. I'm going to send them bankrupt.
You know what's
There
going to
you
be
go.
interesting actually is PGL in. Sorry,
30 days.
but it's PGL Cluj, but we're playing the group stage from
Like,
Bucharest.
okay.
So I keep trying to say Bucharest because I'm flying to Bucharest, but it's PGL Cluj. They're doing 4 best of 3s in a day, back to back.
Yeah.
But we're back on that again. I know we got rid of
And
it
in
back
the
in
arena
like
as well?
2015.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Blast did that for a long time, to be honest.
Yeah,
and
but they did it online.
No,
no, they did it. They did it for
They
groups
did it
as
offline
well.
as well.
Yeah.
But even
Even in
MR15.
even
Yeah.
No, I don't know about the
I don't know.
No,
MR15.
only MR12, I think.
Yeah, I think only MR12, right? I think
Yeah, maybe.
I think MR12 is going to be the godsend to getting more teams into the arenas as well. Like ESL, you need 8 teams in the arena, full playoffs.
Agreed.
Like,
Look, we will see how PGL makes it work in
I mean,
the arena
also
because that's going to be the
PGL
biggest one.
PGL also
Sure.
doesn't have mid breaks, like the ad breaks in the middle
Yeah.
of the games, which can be up like 3 minutes,
2 to
right?
3 minutes, yeah.
That adds up, right, on the whole length of the
yeah,
of
totally.
the game.
Yeah, it's like half
So-
an hour over the day easily, right? So
Right. So stuff like this will add up. And I think as long as you start early enough,
Yeah,
it's
10 a.m. games. The North
2
American
10
teams are in
a.m., you know?
shambles.
But as long as you start early enough, I think it's going to be fine. I think it's overall, I know it's kind of annoying for players to have to like change when they get up and get ready and all of these things, but I think it's overall better for everyone.
Would
More
you,
games
though,
played.
think about this from a TO perspective? Would you so like let's just use ESO because that's what we're talking about, 24 teams. So you get you're saying turn it into a 32 team event, right? And change the format. So that's 8 more extra teams. Would you then like go, okay, well then we don't run like a Sydney or a Melbourne or a Chengdu or a Dallas, and then you put all your resources into that because you're going to have to pay for 8 more teams, which Graham knows is like how many people they pay for, Graham? 7 or 8?
8 actually.
no,
8.
They pay,
8 now.
so they pay for 4 hotel rooms, which they already did anyway, because before they did 3 twins for the 5 players and coach, and then did 1 extra for a manager if a manager was present. So they paid for 7. Blast used to pay for 8 hotel rooms. Now they've gone down to 4.
Jesus.
And PGL have matched them, so they've got 4 hotel rooms plus 8 people for flights and
Okay.
catering and everything else.
Then every team has a prac room.
Every
When
team
you
has a
own-
prac room.
Every team has a prac room. And then you have the player management services to look after them. I don't know. How many player managers per team?
No.
What I would say is that varies very
I'm talking about
greatly
the average
between
here,
TOs.
Okay.
Some of them we get a lot of people, and it's very nice and very helpful. And some of them we get very, very almost nothing.
Okay.
So varies. But 8 teams would be a lot of cost. Like that's a significant outlay, like hundreds of thousands easily.
So this is what's taking me back to the point of like, if I was a TO, I would just do what Valve's rules say, and I wouldn't do anything more because then I wouldn't have to pay more, and I would get the full value of the VRS,
Can
which
I
is the
counter
biggest
your
incentive.
argument?
Of course.
But why is then Cologne better than PGL? I don't know.
Legacy.
PGL Belgrade, or no, I don't mean PGL Astana, 16 team event, which has like same prize pool or like higher prize pool.
What do you mean?
actually,
Why is it
PGL.
better then? What do you mean by better?
By better, I mean like community accepting this as a better event, right?
I think Graham just hit the nail on the head because
But
it's
the
a
legacy can only
event.
last so long, right?
Well, no, it can't. The legacy lasts forever if you keep running it.
No, I mean, yes, if you blackmail all the teams to come only to your events and not go to anyone else.
It might be
Hypothetically.
interchange. It might be
Right.
interchange.
But I'm
Obviously,
saying like you want to keep having the bar above everyone else. And like
Okay.
if you're not lifting that bar, then someone else is lifting the bar, therefore it's better. So I'm not saying like overnight PGL Astana will be a better event, but like where is the edge if not in like having more teams Like, where is the edge? It's not more
But
prize pool.
I'm saying, what's the point of the edge if you're just burning money?
Well, that depends on what you're trying to do, right?
Well, that's just prize pool.
But you can prize pool's capped.
Yeah, but
Well,
it's
it's
basically
not.
burning money.
It's not really.
It's not capped. Some of it's capped.
But it's capped to a degree, right? Like,
To a
it's
small, fairly small
so
degree.
the prize money is capped on the influence it has on the bounty collected and the bounty offered and the opponent network, because that's the modifier that it gives towards those parts of the ranking. But the money you actually get in your bank account, like the thing that Gamer Legion were missing in, the whole, when the ranking updated, they didn't get the prize money added. That part would still increase. So like if you get that extra 250k added to your team, you will gain a lot of points. Well,
Also, you can also just
theoretically
get the money as a team and a player and put it in your pocket or buy a Porsche with it, right? So that money is also not capped.
That's true.
Correct.
And I think because of the thing that I always tell people about the major sticker money, because everyone gets so excited about the crazy figure we had a couple of years ago, that's not guaranteed. So qualifying for the thing that people thought was guaranteed money is something that needs to be taken into consideration because it's not guaranteed money. Whereas events can actually have guaranteed money because those prize pools are what you're going to get paid, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that like is a different part of it, because the whole goal of this is to try and qualify for the major, right? And it's to try and give it as many. Well, no, it's to create a large sample size of data to have the best teams qualify for the major event.
World Championship.
Yeah. But there's a whole lot more that goes into it. And now we find ourselves in the wild, wild west, and all these TOs are pulling guns at each other's heads. It's fucking crazy.
But
We're seeing it all the time.
I mean, we have to. I don't know.
Did you not live through 2018?
Well, yeah, we're back, baby.
I have never seen something like this, said Silvio. Honestly, I wrote down. There's so much shit happening this like last week or 10 days even.
It's crazy, man.
That I'm really sad that like Salacious headlines didn't make a return, but really didn't have time for it. Starting, I don't know if we talked about Zeus and Twist situation. I don't think you talked about that last week. This is the new development, right?
Oh no, we didn't. Yeah,
the whole like literally ex-girlfriend situation.
Came, like, the next day or something
on the timeline. This PGL situation now with announcing Krakow and then it being canceled, pretty much confirming that IEM Katowice is moving to Krakow, like, because essentially they said they'll have
for 3 years, right?
Cyclical event, not a cycling event, as I misread first time. A cyclical event for the next 3 years in end of January, right? In Krakow. So that pretty much confirms that. What is left except PGL going to Katowice and hosting an event there? That's it. Let's fucking go. The legendary Spodek and hiring OJ every time. That would be a banger just for the memes, man. They should do it. Shit. I mean, that happened. Everyone's mad at Launders for charging $70 for a t-shirt.
Well, they're a little mad at you too, aren't they?
To some degree, but more at him.
Use Launders as the human shield.
To be honest, he is charging. We are not charging anything. So people can also. I'm just putting it out there. People can also not buy stuff. I'm just saying it. Kind of crazy. What else? Oh, did
you see the Reddit thread about Austin tickets? Like literally just like misleading headline where it's like, oh, tickets are like double of what they actually are. It's like crazy.
That's also happening. Fang destroyed a team. Any thoughts on that, Messioso?
I know which side I believe.
Okay, which side is that?
I'm leaving it at that. You can connect the dots. I know which side I believe.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. That's one. I had a question that I could have put in the Skinionaire for you, Chad, but I decided not to be that crazy today. The question was in which country is the ISF European Championship taking place?
Fucking hell.
Europe.
That's a banger. And that's it. I just wanted to like highlight all of these like amazing developments. Sorry for taking time off of the show, but it's been a week.
It has been a week. A lot has happened. Okay, so we deviated from VRS. We got 13 more minutes.
I have a question for you guys.
Not for us.
Yeah, genuine question, because I'm curious. Like, how many teams do you genuinely think this ecosystem can support?
6.
What does support mean?
Support means like,
ranked
and getting regular invites within their regional ecosystems that allow them to move up and down within their regular ecosystems.
I mean, right now we know what it is, but I don't know if that's what that's the answer you're looking
Right
for.
now, it's
Well,
like
no,
40,
I'm like, what do you think it should be? Like, and how do you get there? Because like I'm looking at like, I look at the open letter, for example. I'm like, I look at the teams who are signing it. I'm like, all of these teams, with the exception of NIP, who made a conscious choice to do what they wanted to do and change their roster to a roster that wouldn't get invites, fully knowing they wouldn't get invites, and have then used a wild card system, abused it essentially by getting a teamless guy in to fudge that, and still haven't managed to get themselves ranked because they've lost matches. Aside from them, like pretty much everyone like has opportunities to traverse the system, right? Like I get it.
It's crazy.
I get it. If you're like a team very far down the rankings who is never going to get invited to a CCT, I understand that. But the question is, like, if you're that far down the rankings, realistically, you need to get through an open qualifier and make a miracle run and get better, right? Like, I feel like this whole concept of, everyone deserves an opportunity. No, you don't. You don't all deserve an opportunity, because like, if you're good enough, you will get there in the end anyway. Like, there are open qualifiers, you will get through them. So, like, I feel like, the idea that they were saying with you guys, like, oh, you don't cover all the open qualifiers. Like, yeah, because you don't want to be covering 1,023 matches for an IEM Dallas EU Open qualifier. Like, can you imagine how fucked that would be? Yeah. Like, that's just crazy. Now, I just want to clarify. I think I said this on HLTV Confirmed. Might have been on Four Horsemen. I don't know. I still stand by the fact that Valve should take ownership of all the data collection, and they need to have their own source for it. And they do it in Dota already because they have the token system. They have the it's not called token system. It's like a license pass system, and then the TO creates all the matches within that system, and then all the data gets put into that token, and then it all goes off to Valve, and it's all stored and whatever. Yeah. Valve need to have a system like that. So when they license an event, they go, hey, here's your license for this event. Here's your secret key. Put that into your server config, and all your matches get sent to us. Bob's your uncle.
Effectively doing what we do, except through all the TOs themselves,
Exactly, but they're the ones who are handing out the licenses, so they can determine what events are licensed. Like, then you'll still have the cross reference between HLTV and Valve for their own systems. They can still go like, oh, that match was played, cool, that was good, excellent. But
it's also the difference that I guess Dota literally all of it actually played on Valve servers. There's no custom servers for that because like the ping doesn't make a difference.
I don't think it matters though. I mean, again,
you launch a lobby and then it launches a Valve server essentially.
Yeah, but I don't think it necessarily matters too much. I mean, of course, maybe you can use that to like cross-reference, but then as messioso said, I mean, the way we deal with it is like the TOs literally have like a log address thing in their config that sends logs to us, and that's how we get our stats and all that stuff. I mean, they could literally do the exact same thing, just except with a Valve thing. Yeah, and then Valve can do literally what we do, except I don't know, whatever, automate it more or some whatever it is that they could do to make it easier on them. Like that's.
And to be honest, they just need like results. They don't need that much.
I mean, they also need the players. They also need the Steam IDs, to be able to match the players.
But they don't need like a lot of data, but
live
score update and stuff.
But the thing is, they don't need like once they've got a Steam ID, they just know, oh, that player played with these 3 players. That's cool. Exactly. Like they don't necessarily need the granular data immediately. Like they can potentially like collaborate with the HLTV to get that data. Like,
I mean, because sometimes people use different Steam accounts. Someone has an issue, then you use a different one. Then you need to manually like swap that and stuff like that.
We've been locked out of Steam accounts on LAN and had to use like fakes, and my accounts have been used in LAN events before. Like it happens, but like most of that stuff can be fixed if it's known about, and the TO can just go like, hey, this happened during this match. And I agree that the further down you go, the harder that gets to implement. Which again, data needs to be valid. It needs to be like, verified that it's accurate. So like, again, there's always going to be a limit to how low you can go. Now, like the IEM Dallas Open qualifiers were covered, top 16 onwards in Europe, because that was the open qualifier before the closed qualifier. The ones that NIP played for Blast were like an open qualifier before a closed qualifier before another closed qualifier before the event. So like, the open qualifiers weren't covered for the Blast event because it was 3 tiers below the main event. And I get that. I think like some context needs to be applied to like how deep you go with this. So like, I don't disagree with a lot of what HLTV does. I disagree with some of it, but I'm here as your guest. I'm not going to completely. You already know everything that I've said. You already know. So, it's. I think the main thing is I think Valve needs to take a lot more ownership of all this, because as long as it's been handed off to third parties who, you know, may be well-intentioned, they're not always necessarily going to be 100% correct all the time, or, you know, HLTV's guidelines or HLTV's vision for how they want to operate their site may not align with what Valve want to do. Maybe that was the case with the forfeit thing. I don't know, but I know the forfeits have been reported to Valve at least 6 months ago.
Yeah.
At least 6 months ago. So I don't know what suddenly made them go like that.
I mean,
you also mentioned this a few times.
That's what made them go that. I don't know. Like, I don't know
Can
why.
we just say, can we call out who
was
was abusing this? Who was abusing the forfeits?
I know that OG was suffered a lot for it. I think they had like
then
4
they
forfeits against
did
them.
it themselves, by the way. Then they were like, okay, we can do this, so let's do it. OG did it at the last team to do it.
What is the deal?
Because you're going to
enough,
lose more points by by playing than forfeit.
My girlfriend asked me about this, and I was like, I didn't even hear about this. So I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but apparently it's a thing. So essentially, they would see that
at the beginning
they would lose more points from
by playing and losing. Yeah.
Oh, from this particular game, even though they're not favorites, or what?
It depends on who you're matched up against, right? Like if it's a relatively close matchup, then probably you will not do this because, you know, the plus minus is not going to be crazy. But like, let's say you're matched up against an unranked team as a number 20 team on the ranking, like the points you can lose. I don't actually have this down to the number. Maybe Graham does.
It's like somewhere between
like
30 and 35.
30,
I've seen like 32, I think, is like the highest I've seen. But like someone made the point, a guy called Galil, he's in Liquipedia and Discord, he's on Twitter. Like we lost in the round of 32 of the Dallas qualifier. If we progressed one more round and then lost, we would have lost like 30 something points because the team we were playing against was like complete, you know, 0 rank, nothing. So, you know,
but you lost before that, and it wasn't on HLTV.
It wasn't
correct. So it wasn't covered. And you know, again, I think that, you know, where you draw the line is where you draw the line. I don't really have much opinion on that. I think that if you are not getting to the top 16
somewhere,
I think if you're not getting to the top 16 of an IEM Dallas EU Open qualifier, where so many teams, like, bear in mind, like 5 teams were directly invited to the event, like another 10 were directly invited to the closed qualifier. So like, you're already taking the top 16 teams out, minus or plus the teams that declined the event, which was like another 3 or something, right? Like, if you're not getting through the open qualifiers at that point, or at least not making top 16 in the open qualifiers at that point, like I feel like there's a limit, and that limit is like you don't deserve necessarily to get ranked if you're not making that.
But it should be uniform, right? That's the thing. It should be where you're talking about this line. It should be uniform across all events.
I think there's relevancy involved.
Okay,
I think
the standard is difficult, right? I mean, that's because every event is slightly different, and who gets invited straight and blah blah blah. I think, you know what the bigger problem than like deserved or not deserved is the fact that like unranked teams, that's literally their only avenue, right? And so if that's the only avenue, like whether they are, you know, it's not going to matter whether you're going to make it to the big event, of course, and like whether you can make it to a lot of tier 2 events or whatever, but it's still going to place you somewhere in the ranking to get invited in the first place, right? Like if you don't make it anywhere in that, then you're never going to get invited as a top 80 team to one of these close qualifiers, to CCT or whatever it is. You know, like you have no way to enter unless you make it to the top 16, top 8 that is covered, you know? So like at some point it has to go further down. Otherwise, for any new team, there's going to be virtually no path, you know? So, or unless, you know, that's like a local open qualifier like BYOC shit that's just going straight to ranked, you know, something like that. You know, like it's very, very difficult for anybody unranked. It was already before, like, no, don't get me wrong. I was saying this on the last podcast where, you know, like the teams that are now complaining are effectively just realizing the pain that a lot of teams were feeling before, because a lot of the even tier 2 circuit was a lot closed off to a high degree. You know, like they only invited the teams that they thought they were interesting to the audience, you know, which means they had some decent names or like big enough organization, regardless of their level of competition. So a lot of the teams below the top 50 were just feeling this exact same pain. They were just getting gate kept out of these tournaments in the first place, you know? So now those teams are actually getting an opportunity, while the ones that are just not competitive are feeling that pain, you know, of we have no way to make it up, you know? So it's more like that now we're actually functioning more on merit, and the teams that should have gotten a chance in the first place are because a lot of the organizations that are decent names, you know, are not actually as competitive as we thought, or they're just not putting on competitive enough rosters. Some of them, of course, like if you come up with an entirely new core like an IP did, it's just going to be a more difficult path anyway. But again, not any more difficult than any other team in the past that had no name had it before. You know, like the opportunities are still there to the same level. Open qualifiers. I mean, we don't have that any fewer not that few of them compared to last year, you know. So I think it's really not that different. I think it's really tier 1, tier 2 is not a problem. Tier 3 has always been a problem, and now just more teams are realizing that.
Yeah, nothing's changed. I don't know the exact numbers for like the open qualifier percentages, like how many slots are available, but like there's definitely more events, which means there logically is also more open qualifiers. I think it's very similar. I think, again, this is why I brought up the issue about like how many teams do you think this ecosystem could functionally actually sustain? Because like, you know, Endpoint pulling out, yes, I understand, you know, the financials and everything else, and they want to be able to do it right and everything else. But, you know, how low can you go before you just are at a point where it doesn't matter how many of you are saying this is unsustainable. There's too many of you to fit into the bottleneck.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah,
but I think it should be able to sustain as many as it can sustain.
Exactly, but I think that's the growing pain we're going through now. And like, I also think, one, it's way too early to determine this. We're like a month in, we've had like 2 invite cutoffs so far. Yeah. You know, the start of the year got screwed because of fuck ups from TOs. That sucks, and that should never have happened. Like, fundamentally, just should never have happened. And I don't think it will continue to repeat to happen because people have now had the wake up and the warning. But, you know, that sucks, but that doesn't mean that the rest of the year is going to be terrible. You know, I'm looking at the EU teams now, and they've got, you know, CCTC 17 is just finishing, 18 is about like halfway through the play-in stage. They've got 19 and 20 being invited off of like the most recent rankings. Like, they're going to have enough events. Like Europe again is going to be fine. The other regions, but the other regions were kind of fucked anyway. So like nothing's changed. Like,
South America is also kind of fine. I mean, they will have their own. They
were already kind of fine.
I think Asia, if anything, is actually going to be better this year. Not Oceania, of course, but Asia as like a whole region is going to be better off this year, 100%, just through PGL throwing up some qualifiers for them and these massive fucking close qualifiers that. You know, they're even putting on like a LAN in Mongolia or something, you know, like the same way that I think ESL did for China, right? I think they did some like Chinese qualifier, right? That they've thrown up on LAN.
Did they end up getting forfeited or something in the end?
I don't no, I don't think so. But anyway, like they're even doing a LAN for the top teams, you know, so like there's going to be more happening in Asia. Oceania is getting kind of fucked as a result of this because they're now thrown in the same pile, you know, and they cannot be separated, which is, or they will.
Same with us in SA.
Yeah, exactly. Like you guys in Oceania are the ones that are kind of on the outskirts that are just getting thrown into this big one region where you can't actually compete against one another a lot of the time, you know. So those two are definitely fucked, but I think everybody else is virtually in the same place, if not better.
Now that is a real thing that should have got into the Valve open letter.
Yeah, right.
About like fundamental issues that cannot be fixed because they are intertwined with regions they actually physically cannot compete against.
Well, I think Profs, you said a misleading
your own open letter.
I'm no part of that open letter. I just want to be clear.
I know, but
we did not sign it.
it.
We did not agree with it. There are parts of it that I can get on board with, but as I told them, Valve very specifically requested that teams send their feedback individually. So it's raw. It's like exactly what you believe, 100%. This is what we believe. Like, I can't sign that letter on behalf of Complexity because I don't believe everything in that letter. And I don't think that every single team believes everything in that letter or understands everything in that letter, which, I mean, Striker, you saw a fucking early version of that letter. Like, it's improved a lot since where it was from, but like it was bad to begin with. Like, it was actually embarrassing that teams were like saying, yes, I agree to sign this letter in the form it was in to begin with. So like, it's, yes, a lot of the points are valid, but I think they lack a lot of nuance, and I think they lack a lot of understanding of like the wider issues. I think it's very basic, and we couldn't bring ourselves to sign it, but I mean, obviously, you know, it's mostly a European centric thing, and
got a couple of names on this
for teams that actually do have an opportunity and do have all the ways, as you said earlier, you know. So it's kind of crazy to me.
And some of those, I know Mouse Sports specifically mentioned when they signed that they mentioned about like academy progression and stuff like that, which I can understand from their perspective because that does put them in the same kind of bracket as NIP or you know, well, maybe not NIP, but like some of the lower down teams. But a lot of the others, I don't really think they truly understood what they were necessarily signing on for. But again, the letter changed so much. The letter changed so much from when some of them signed it that I don't even know what they all agreed to. So
I think the problem is at the end they left this little short-term suggestion.
Oh, the open qualifiers
like
major,
such a small thing, and it's like, no, let's open let's add open qualifiers back into the system.
Gentlemen, I have a hard out, which we're over, but I have one final question. And I want everyone to give their honest answer on this, and I want to understand the yes or the no. I got Lucas to put up a Twitch poll about this. The people voted 91% in favor of yes, and the question was: should Valve Major Stage 1 and Stage 2 count for 100% of the VRS points?
Objection leading.
Why should it not?
Because it is a qualifying part.
But it's the major.
Look. The way that Valve look at it is pretty clear that they are not considering that as important as the stage at the end, you know, the stage 3. They did it the same as messioso said with Shanghai. If they really felt like the entire major was worth the same weight, they would have just thrown it all in the same pile, and that little thing that says a major is always going to have 100% thing, 100% value or whatever.
Worth noting, there is a line in the code that actually specifically makes it so that Valve can add specific events and always give them full value.
Right.
So
but
Valve, in theory, have either forgotten or opted not to. They did use it in the past for some RMRs. I think was it the Copenhagen RMRs? I think they used it
might
for.
have been, yeah.
I think it was the Copenhagen RMRs they used it for. So there is the capability, there is the option to do that. They could also do that with Katowice group stage. They can put any HLTV event they can put in there. Basically, they just take the ID from the URL, slap it.
What is the percentage
value.
now?
14.3%.
That's like the bare minimum, right? That's the
bare minimum. Yeah.
Okay. So the reason I say this is because the whole point of the circuit is meant to culminate in the major. The major, don't give a fuck how many stages Valve make it. I feel should all be at 100%, because if you get into the biggest and most important event of the year, then shouldn't you have the most points for the ranking going into the next portion?
I don't think 100% makes sense, but I don't think 14.3 makes sense either, because it's not 100%. It's because the best teams are not there. You're not playing any of the best teams. You're not playing Monacy, you're not playing ZywOo, you're not playing Donk. Like the quality.
But doesn't that
of the
play into like you'll only get a certain but you'll only get a certain amount of prize money, and then you'll only get a certain amount with the
but you get all the LAN wins part of it. Like that's that.
But you get all the LAN wins if you play in a tournament that's only in your country, right? Or only if it's a gender specific tournament.
Yeah, sure.
So then why the fuck would you have a major thing as stage 1 or stage 2 that doesn't get 100% of the points, but you can have a gender specific tournament that does?
Should LAN wins not be put under the same scaling?
I don't know why they haven't, to be honest.
I mean, it's directly against my wishes, but that would essentially fix that issue.
Yeah.
This is my reason why not 100%, but I feel like, I don't know the math behind it, so I can't really say, but 14.3 being minimal, just the fact that it's the minimum, I don't feel like that reflects on the importance of the major, but I would say Katowice playing, kind of different story.
You think Katowice playing with the teams in attendance deserves a 14.3%
I'm saying the major playing, Katowice and Cologne playing, not on the same level. They're not on the major plans are on a different level than.
But so here's my question.
I think Katowice is better than the major.
Oh, there we go.
Because fundamentally, it invites the top 24 teams, whereas the major has regional elements to it.
Factually might be true, but importance-wise, for me as a viewer, the matches that are played there for me are more important.
But Valve doesn't care about that. Valve only cares about like data and facts, right?
But that's fine. But I was asked for my opinion, so I'm just giving my opinion.
Fair enough.
I will say one thing, right? Like majors are a bit different because the opening stage had like $10,000, right? So what the scaling actually affects is bounty offered, bounty. Well, opponent.
No, it won't be bounty offered because they haven't earned the prize money yet. It'll only be bounty collected and opponent network.
Right, bounty collected. Sorry, not bounty offered. Bounty collected and opponent network. Yeah. Those are only 2 of the 4 factors. The actual prize money that you earn is at the end, and that's not affected by this, right?
Correct. Yeah, you'd get the bounty collected after the event has ended.
And
Or,
that's full,
well,
full.
I mean, depends. I mean, you know, again, this whole like IEM Katowice updating mid-event thing. Maybe
Look,
you do.
like,
Maybe you do have the
in
prize
an
money
ideal world
beforehand,
like
but
that actually is
yeah.
counted like when it's supposed to. Like you get 100% of the prize money that you earn. So like the fact that the scaling actually comes into play, it doesn't affect, especially for teams that earn this little in prize money. In like Katowice, it's like $4,000 for the bottom, for the ones that go out.
$2,500.
2.5 right for last place.
Bottom, then
Yeah,
for
I just
half for the
got
ones
it.
that-
So
yeah, fair enough. But it's like effectively making no difference unless you are like really outside of the, like you are unranked or whatever. Like that sort of money basically doesn't do anything for the teams that are already there or very little. So that's one part that's, you know, like that part we don't necessarily care about, because the teams that you're eliminating then and then getting the bounty collected points, you're not beating teams that have that much of a prize money at that point, you know, in those competitions usually, unless it is a big upset or whatever. And then
I mean,
that is
might
reflected in head-to-head. I don't know what it is, what it's going to be there. Yeah.
Some of the top, like, you know, you're looking at like top 9 teams. I mean, some of them have some pretty substantial prize money.
Yeah, but those are
and that's going to get worse this year.
But those are you're usually not going to beat in the first stage of that tournament. It's all going to be top 16 and lower teams that have like much less prize money earned, right? And even then, like those are going to be the ones that actually make it to the main event, unless there are upsets. And if there are upsets, you're going to get a lot of points for the head-to-head instead, which is a full adjustment. That has nothing to do with the scaling, you know. So the overall scaling of the event doesn't actually play that big of a factor, considering LAN wins and prize money that you earn are the two biggest factors that count towards the teams that are at least, you know, outside of the top 20. And then that prize money is low enough that it doesn't really, like, you know, shift the scale that much for teams that you beat anyway, you know. So I don't think it actually is that big of a deal that those stages are you know, the scaling is that different.
That's above my pay grade.
It's
boundaries,
not the biggest issue.
Chad, boundaries.
Guys, I'm going to get castrated. I have to go. My life will be over. Anyway, what we need to talk about this more, and we need to talk about this forever, because this is the stuff to be spoken about. So thank you for joining us, Graham. We didn't get through everything. We had plenty more we could talk about. I apologize for the hard out, which is no longer hard. Everybody for tuning in. Thank you to Teemu. Thank you for Snappi for coming. Thank you for Graham. Thank you for Striker. Thank you for Prof. Thank you for Lucas. Thank you for everybody for watching. Thank you to the sponsors, SkinPlace and 1xBet. Remember to gamble responsibly. And we'll put on another episode and we'll keep talking, because we can't stop talking. We're getting out of here. We'll be back with another episode. I'll be doing it from Cluj or fucking Romania. Wait, it's Bucharest, the other city. Goodbye.
The world is changing quickly. Shut up.
The world is changing, but one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xBet.
Sell in-game items at the best prices in just a couple of clicks. We are the biggest instant sell service for in-game items like Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, and Rust. Easy selling process and instant withdrawal of funds to the most popular payment methods. More than 140,000 deals and 50,000 active sellers every month. Use promo code HLTV5 and get a 5% bonus on the sale of your skins. SkinPlace. Sell items now.
It was more than a game. It was everything. Every single emotion on display. Not a moment missed. This was CSGO through the lens.